Chapter 2066. Lu Yi was instantly vexed. He shouldn't have been so savage and killed so many star beasts. This time he really suffered a great loss. The quality of the flaming sun essence spat out by the moon jade star beast was obviously not as good as Rizhao's, but it was still very good. Lu Yi immediately picked up the fire gourd and swallowed it. As a reward, he also dissolved a portion of the blaze power in Rizhao's body. After receiving such treatment, Rizhao's star beast was clearly more motivated. For the rest of the journey, its calls for companions became more urgent. In less than a day, Lu Yi had gathered more than 50 star beasts. Rizhao only had the first one, Yao had a few, and the rest were all constellation. Without exception, these summoned star beasts all contributed 1 or 2 strands of flaming sun essence to Lu Yi. After some observation, Lu Yi discovered the source of the flaming sun essence. It was the manifestation of the star beast's crystal cores. Therefore, even Rizhao's star beast couldn't produce too much flaming sun essence at once. The quality of the flaming sun essence they contributed was also different depending on the cultivation of the star beasts. Rizhao's was undoubtedly the best, followed by Yao's, and Constellation's was the worst. But even so, it was still flaming sun essence that could be directly devoured by the fire gourd. After another half a day, they returned to their original location. The number of star beasts had increased a little. A large group of them had gathered together. Lu Yi found Rizhao's star beast and held a strand of flaming sun essence in his hand. He sent it a sound transmission. "I want this. A lot, a lot. Do you understand?" Rizhao's star beast blinked. Its intelligence wasn't very high, but since it had already responded to Lu Ye's request, it naturally understood what he meant. It immediately turned around and squeaked at the other star beasts. As if receiving an order, the star beasts sank into the giant red star and disappeared. Even Rizhao's star beast disappeared in an instant. Through the blaze power, Lu Yi could sense that it was rapidly moving away, but it didn't seem to be running away. Lu Yi vaguely had some guesses, so he simply let it be and waited patiently. Anyway, as long as it can't resolve the power of brightness, it will never be able to escape from his control. If the opponent is a real spiritual wisdom cultivator, Lu Yi will have to pay more attention, but if it's just a star beast, he doesn't need to care too much. Time passed by, and the sunshine star beast that had left would return every 2 or 3 days, bringing back a different number of star beasts each time. This led to more and more star beasts gathering in the magma below Lu Yi. This completely confirmed Lu Ye's previous conjecture that it had left to summon more of its kind. It was for this reason that he had allowed the star beast to leave. Lu Yi took some time to investigate the situation of these star beasts. She discovered that they were scattered and quietly staying in their positions like fish in water. Every time they breathed, strange energy from the surrounding lava would gather in front of them and gradually transform into the appearance of flaming sun essence. This was undoubtedly an instinct of their race. Compared to cultivators who use their own techniques or treasures to refine the flaming sun essence, it was much more efficient. Lu Yi was overjoyed. This way, he only needed to come back every once in a while to check on them and harvest them. The star beasts that gathered here were like crops in the field. He didn't need to worry about them at all. He didn't expect to have such a pleasant surprise after coming to the giant red star. He was already dissatisfied with the speed of the fire gourd's nourishing of the strange fire. With the help of the star beasts, it would undoubtedly save him a lot of time. About a month after Lu Yi came to the giant red star, an uninvited guest suddenly came to visit. Sensing the other's aura approaching, Lu Yi hurriedly put away the fire gourd and looked up. Soon, a white-haired old man wearing a wide robe with large sleeves appeared in his field of vision. The other party was standing on a cloud of dense purple gas and had extraordinary power. He landed directly in front of Lu Yi and said in a clear voice, "This old man is Ji Boyun. Fellow Taoist Li, you've managed to gain a foothold in such a short time." Lu Yi didn't know why the other party came to find him, but when he heard the other party's voice, he knew that this was the person who had sent him a voice transmission when he first arrived here. At that time, Lu Yi had even greeted him, but this Ji Boyun didn't seem to have any intention of interacting with him. He only said that it wouldn't be too late to talk to him after a while. Lu Yi didn't understand his meaning at that time, But now he understood. This giant red star not only had a harsh environment, but also star beasts. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to gain a foothold here. The fact that he could stay here for such a long time obviously meant that he had received Ji Boyun's approval. That was why he took the initiative to come and meet him. "Fellow Taoist, you're too kind. I was just lucky," Lu Yi replied. He could tell that this Ji Boyun was in the late Sunshine Realm. He didn't know which galaxy he came from. He was checking the other party's cultivation. Ji Boyun did the same. He asked in surprise, "Fellow Taoist Li, you're only in the early Sunshine Realm?" Lu Yi nodded. Ji Boyun stroked his beard. "Your cultivation is a little weak. But since you're able to gain a foothold here, you have your merits," he commented casually, not caring whether Lu Yi was willing to listen or not. "Fellow Taoist, what brings you here?" Lu Yi asked. He had been here for a month. Although he hadn't interacted with many people, he had a rough idea of the situation on the giant red star. Putting aside the cultivators who were refining the flaming sun essence outside the giant red star, there were only 3 other cultivators who could stay here. This Ji Boyun was in the late Sunshine Realm. Lu Yi didn't know the cultivation of the other 2, but they were definitely stronger than him. This was because an ordinary early Sunshine Realm cultivator wouldn't be able to stay here for a long time. Indeed. Ji Boyun nodded. "Let's cut to the chase. Since we're here on the giant red star, we're here to make use of the special environment to cultivate. However, you should know that we're not the only ones here. There are many sunflame beasts here. Ordinary sunflame beasts aren't much of a threat to us, and we can kill them easily. However, there's a sunflame beast king that's hard to deal with. It's secretive and vigilant, and it attacks us every few days. Therefore, we've been thinking of ways to get rid of that sunflame beast king to prevent future trouble. This is also for our future cultivation. We've already planned to act soon, but since you're here, we'll need you to help us too." After listening to his explanation, Lu Yi finally understood why Ji Boyun had come to find him. The sunflame beasts he mentioned should be the star beasts. From Ji Boyun's point of view, it was only right for Lu Yi to help. After all, he was going to cultivate here in the future. He couldn't say that others were helping while he watched from the sidelines. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. However, from Lu Yi's point of view, it wasn't like that. If Ji Boyun had come to find him a month ago when he had just arrived, he might not have rejected him. However, at this point in time, the sunflame beasts were all his crops. They were chickens that could lay eggs. He couldn't wait to protect them. How could he possibly lay his hands on them? Thus, after pondering for a moment, Lu Yi said, "I appreciate your kindness, but I won't be participating in this matter. I'm weak. If I rashly get involved, I'm afraid I'll drag you all down." Ji Boyun said calmly, "That's fine. Since you're able to establish yourself here, you have the right to participate. We'll take action in 3 days. When the time comes, you can come over on your own." After saying that, he turned and left. Judging by his attitude, he clearly didn't intend to let Lu Yi stay out of this matter. He also didn't intend to waste any more words with him. He had come here to inform Lu Yi. Looking at Ji Boyun's back as he left, Lu Yi's expression was calm. Although he didn't know what Ji Boyun and the others were going to do, since they were going against the Sunflame Beast King, he just needed to take care of his side. As long as he took care of the Sunflame Beast King, Ji Boyun and the others wouldn't be able to use any tricks. As he thought of this, he channeled his mana and sank into the giant red star. After going down a few miles, he could see a large number of sunflame beasts scattered around, absorbing the fire energy around them. Many of the sunflame beasts had condensed flaming sun essence in front of them, but most of them weren't harvested yet. Lu Yi was like a lord, patrolling his own territory. At the same time, his spiritual consciousness surged in all directions. "All of you work hard. Don't slack off." These sunflame beasts summoned by the Sunflame Beast King weren't afraid of him. Lu Yi quickly found the location of the Sunflame Beast King. The wounds on its body hadn't healed completely. There were still some remnants of the power of brightness. This was also Lu Yi's method of controlling it. The Sunflame Beast King wasn't working. It was licking its wounds. Seeing Lu Yi's arrival, it instantly squeaked, indicating that it wasn't slacking off. It would immediately set off to find more companions. Just as it was about to leave, Lu Yi grabbed it and told it that there was danger outside. It shouldn't run around. The Sun Flame Beast King looked at him, confused. Lu Yi had no choice. He could only pull out his Panshan saber and slash at it. Then he pointed outside. The Sun Flame Beast King seemed to be even more confused. After a long time, Lu Yi finally returned to his own place. He wasn't sure if the Sun Flame Beast King understood what he meant. However, as long as he had the power of brightness, he could keep an eye on this guy's movements. It was better to be safe than sorry. Hence, Ji Buyun and the others were destined to fail in their mission against the Sun Flame Beast King. Fortunately, the Sun Flame Beast King seemed to have understood what he meant. In the next few days, it didn't leave. This made Lu Yi very happy. In the blink of an eye, the 3-day deadline was up. Lu Yi still stayed in his own place. He activated the power of the Fire Gourd while paying attention to the Sun Flame Beast King. As for Ji Buyun, he didn't care at all. At the same time, in Ji Buyun's territory, 3 figures stood side by side. The one in the middle was Ji Buyun, who had gone to look for Lu Yi a few days ago. The other 2 were a man and a woman. The man was tall and sturdy, and his upper body was naked. Fiery red lines covered his entire body, making him look extremely strange. The woman had a head of red hair that seemed to be burning in flames. Even her beautiful eyes seemed to have the strange phenomenon of rising flames. End of chapter. Chapter 2067. 3 silhouettes, 3 sunshine, all of them extraordinarily powerful. The red-haired girl twirled a strand of her hair around her finger. She said slowly, "Senior Brother Ji, is the newcomer coming or not? Why does it look like he doesn't want to come? If he wanted to come, he would have shown himself long ago. He would not have been nowhere to be seen. What newcomer? I'm so strong. Can't I satisfy you?" The bare-chested man said. The red-haired girl called Jiosi's eyes lit up. She turned to the man and said coldly, "Lai Hua, don't force me to tear your mouth off." Lai Hua did not care. He just laughed. "I can't bear to tear your mouth off. I'll only tear your clothes off." "You're asking for it." Jiosi gritted her teeth. Her whole body was burning. "All right," Ji Bo-yun suddenly said coldly. "Let's begin." He also had a headache. Whenever these 2 fellows got together, the result would always be like this. That Lai Hua did not hide his desire for Jusi at all. More than once, he had said in front of Jusi that he would get her into his bed sooner or later. And Jusi was also someone who would explode at the slightest provocation. This was the shortcoming of many fire element cultivators. If not for the fact that they had to work together to defeat the Sun Flame Beast King, he would not have cooperated with them. Seeing that he had spoken, Jiosi retracted her spiritual power. She glared at Lai Hua and said, "That newcomer, if he doesn't want to come, then let's not care about him. I didn't include him anyway. After this, I'll talk to him personally." Jiosi was silent. She knew that Ji Bo-yun did not just want to talk to him. If he did not show up when he needed everyone's help, he would not be able to enjoy the peace after this. Ji Bo-yun would definitely chase him away. As he spoke, Ji Bo-yun flipped his palm and took out something. Jiosi and Lai Hua looked over. It looked like a stick of incense. However, it was much bigger and thicker than normal incense sticks. They knew that this was a beast-attracting incense specially made for the Sun Flame Beast King. Once it was lit, most of the Sun Flame Beasts would not be able to escape. The Sun Flame Beast King was especially sensitive to this item. Ji Bo-yun had spent a lot of money to find someone to refine this item just to deal with it. Luring the Sun Flame Beast King out is easy. It's not even hard to injure it. The difficult part is killing it on the spot. The Sun Flame Beast King was not very powerful. It was mainly because of the special environment that they were in. That was why they could not kill the Sun Flame Beast King. As Ji Bo-yun spoke, he looked at Jusi. "When the time comes, this old man will fight it head-on. If I can kill it in one fell swoop, that would be for the best, but if something unexpected happens," Jiosi replied, "don't worry, I brought the heaven-trapping net with me this time. As long as Senior Brother Ji can tie it down, it definitely won't be able to escape." Ji Bo-yun said, The skywrapping net won't be able to bind it for too long. 3 breaths is enough. If it can last 3 breaths under my iron fists, I'll call it Grandpa. Ji Bo-yun nodded. I've long heard of the barbarian race's prowess. Today, I'd like to see it for myself. After the discussion, Ji Bo-yun immediately lit up the beast-attracting incense. This incense was specially made. Even in this special environment, it burned very slowly. As the fragrance drifted and the solar wind spread rapidly, an invisible aura gradually spread throughout the entire red planet. The 3 sunshine beasts also used their own methods to conceal themselves. They stood by the side. An hour later, Lu Yi suddenly felt that something was wrong. It was as if something strange had spread to his side. He took a deep breath. As expected, something was wrong. At the same time, through the feedback from the power of brightness, the Sun Flame Beast King also seemed to be abnormal. He had been vigilant. Now that he sensed something, he quickly entered the giant red star to investigate. After a while, Lu Yi was shocked. The Sun Flame beasts that had gathered here had decreased greatly. They had obviously run away. He did not know when they had run away. When he came down, he happened to see a few Sun Flame beasts rushing in one direction. They seemed to have been attracted by something. The remaining Sun Flame beasts were no longer focused on their work. They were all absent-minded. Even the Sun Flame Beast King was affected. Just as Lu Yi was observing, more Sun Flame beasts left in the same direction. The Sun Flame Beast King squeaked a few times and also rushed in that direction. Lu Yi could not stop it. Ji Bo-yun had made his move. Lu Yi did not know what method he had used, but it was obvious that he had lured the Sun Flame beasts to take the bait. This was troublesome. He had thought that everything would be fine as long as he took care of the Sun Flame Beast King. Who knew that Ji Bo-yun would take such drastic measures? Without hesitation, he rushed out and headed straight for Ji Bo-yun's territory. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, he arrived at his destination and immediately saw a huge stick of incense burning slowly below him. Beast-attracting incense. It should be a beast-attracting incense specially made for Sun Flame beasts. Otherwise, it would not have such an effect. So this was the reason. At this moment, many Sun Flame beasts had already arrived. They gathered near the beast-attracting incense and greedily breathed in its fragrance. Lu Yi could sense that there were 3 powerful auras hiding. They should be Ji Bo-yun and the others. However, because the Sun Flame Beast King had not shown up, the Sun Flame beasts that had gathered were safe. But once the Sun Flame Beast King showed up, these Sun Flame beasts would be surrounded and killed mercilessly. He had come just in time. These Sun Flame beasts were all his treasures. How could he let them die here? In a flash, he arrived before the beast-attracting incense and kept it in his storage ring. "What are you doing?" A furious roar was heard. It was not Ji Bo-yun's voice. "How dare you insult me?" This time, it was Ji Bo-yun who spoke. His voice was filled with anger. As soon as he finished speaking, the hidden Ji Bo-yun suddenly appeared. His white hair moved without any wind, and he glared at Lu Yi fiercely as if he wanted to eat him. Previously, he was willing to take the initiative to look for Lu Yi and ask him to take action. He had already given Lu Yi enough face. After all, it did not matter whether Lu Yi was involved or not. The 3 of them had already planned to take action. However, seeing that Lu Yi was also staying here to cultivate, they gave him a chance to contribute. It was fine that Lu Yi did not show up at the agreed time, but now he had snatched the beast-attracting incense? How could Ji Bo-yun tolerate this? Another 2 figures appeared. 3 sun beasts surrounded Lu Yi in a triangular formation. Powerful auras filled the air. The Sun Flame beasts that had gathered here immediately scattered like birds. They all sank into the lava and disappeared. Ji Bo-yun and the other 2 had no intention of killing them. To them, the only thing they needed to deal with was the Sun Flame Beast King. The other Sun Flame beasts were not much of a threat to them. It did not matter if they killed them or not. Lu Yi looked around. His gaze lingered on Lai Hua for a moment. Then he looked at Ji Bo-yun and sighed. He clasped his fists and said, "I had no choice but to act rashly. Brother, please forgive me." Everyone had their own positions in this matter. But speaking of which, it was indeed inappropriate for him to interfere with someone else's plan. If he was in Ji Bo Yun's position, he would not be happy either. No choice. Ji Bo Yun looked at Lu Yi and said coldly, "Then I would like to hear what you have to say. If you can't explain it, then this place will be your burial ground." Lu Yi scratched his head. It was difficult for him to explain. After all, he could not tell them the truth. He could only say, "I had no choice but to ask the three of you to let the Sun Flame Beast King go. The reason why the three of you are targeting it is because it interfered with your cultivation. I can guarantee that the Sun Flame Beast King will not disturb the three of you in the future. Also, if the three of you are willing, I can compensate the three of you to a certain extent as an apology." "How can you guarantee that?" Jiushi frowned. She was very curious about this. Lu Ye's attitude was very sincere. She could naturally see that. She vaguely felt that Lu Yi really had no choice but to act this time. "Compensation? You want to compensate us?" Lai Hua seemed to have heard something strange. He could not help but laugh. The anger of the three of them could not be appeased by ordinary compensation. Lu Yi looked like he was only in the early stage of the Sunshine Realm. It was hard to say if he had the ability to do so. Lai Hua naturally would not believe him. Lu Yi nodded at him. "As long as your request is not too excessive, I will try my best to satisfy the three of you." With his identity as the master of the Wanxiang Sea, he naturally had the confidence to say these words. "Ha!" Lai Hua laughed. "My friend, you look young, but your tone is not small." If that's the case, before he could finish, Lu Yi suddenly turned his head to look at Ji Boyun and frowned. In his perception, the trace of Feng power that was wrapped around the Sunshine Beast King was rapidly approaching Ji Boyun from below. It was obviously trying to sneak an attack on him. Sure enough, in the next moment, a beast claw suddenly reached out from where Ji Boyun was standing. It went straight for Ji Boyun's chest. This sneak attack could be said to be without warning. Ji Boyun reacted quickly. He hurriedly raised his hand and hit the beast claw. His whole body flew out. Lu Yi had experienced the terrifying power of the Sunshine Beast King. Although Ji Boyun was in the late stage of the Sunshine Realm, he was not as strong as the Sunshine Beast King in this realm. He was at a disadvantage. However, while he was flying, he turned his palm into a claw and grabbed the Sunshine Beast King's wrist. He growled, "Come out." Amidst the squeaking sounds, the Sunshine Beast King appeared from the lava. It waved its limbs and scratched at Ji Boyun. It quickly got rid of his control and was about to return to the lava. "This is a good chance." Juicy's eyes lit up. He took out the heaven-trapping net and covered the Sunshine Beast King from below. This attack caught the Sunshine Beast King off guard. There was no way for the Sunshine Beast King to dodge. Lai Hua had already moved. The patterns on his body seemed to have come alive. As they twisted and changed, a roaring beast head condensed on his body. A ferocious beast shadow also appeared behind him. It pounced towards the Sun Flame Beast King at lightning speed. Once the Sun Flame Beast King was caught by the heaven-wrapping net, it would be killed in one strike. End of chapter. Chapter 2068. Even without any prior practice, the three Rijao's cooperation was flawless. This was, of course, due to their rich battle experience. To be able to grow to their level, they were all seasoned warriors. The heaven-trapping net closed, and the Sun Flame Beast King had nowhere to run. Lai Hua was like a beast in human form. He pounced and threw a punch. The punch hit nothing. When the heaven-trapping net closed, the Sun Flame Beast King had already disappeared. The three of them turned their heads and looked to the side. They saw Lu Yi standing there quietly, holding the Sun Flame Beast King that should have been killed. It was obvious that he had saved the Sun Flame Beast King at the critical moment. This was out of Ji Boyun and the other two's expectations. No matter who it was, their cultivation was much higher than Lu Ye's. However, the speed that Lu Yi had shown in that instant was even faster than their full power. Otherwise, he would not have been able to save the Sun Flame Beast King when the three of them worked together. The Sun Flame Beast King did not seem to understand the situation. It was still in Lu Ye's hands, baring its teeth at Ji Boyun as if it had a deep grudge against him. In fact, the Sun Flame Beast King and Ji Boyun did have a grudge. It was not the only Sun Flame Beast King in the Rizhao level. There was another one. However, the other one had died at Ji Buyun's hands. This undoubtedly made the Sun Flame Beast King bear a grudge. If not, it would not have just ambushed Ji Buyun. However, this happened before Lu Yi came, so he was not aware of it. Go! When Lu Yi threw it out, he used the power of brightness slightly to give it a warning. The Sun Flame Beast King finally reacted. It fell into the lava and quickly disappeared. This time, Ji Buyun and the other two's expressions became extremely ugly. Junior, are you determined to make things difficult for me? Ji Buyun's anger was like a suppressed volcano that could erupt at any time. The original plan was very good. If Lu Yi had not suddenly attacked, the Sun Flame Beast King would have died. As long as they killed the Sun Flame Beast King, they would not have to worry about cultivating on the giant red star in the future. However, because of Lu Ye's rescue, all their efforts were in vain. Although Jiao Si and Lai Huo were not as angry as Ji Bo-yun, their expressions were not good. Lu Yi sighed in his heart. He cupped his fists and said, "Please calm down. I ask that the three of you seriously consider what I said just now. If you are just cultivating, there is no need to kill them all. In the future, the Fire Beast King will not bother the three of you again." He had said that just now, but none of the three took it to heart. However, after experiencing what happened just now, Ji Bo-yun immediately saw some clues. He forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart and asked in surprise, "You're from the beast taming school? You can control that Sun Flame Beast King?" If he wasn't a cultivator of the beast tamer school, how could he coexist peacefully with the star beasts? When Li Taibai grabbed the Sun Flame Beast King, it did not resist at all. But it was still inconceivable. Cultivators of the beast taming school could control beasts, but not star beasts. That was because star beasts had low intelligence, and it was basically impossible to control star beasts of the sunshine level. But this Li Taibai did it. For the time being, I guess. Lu Yi was too lazy to explain too much. Since Ji Bo-yun had such a misunderstanding, he would just let him be. What an eye-opener! Ji Bo-yun nodded slightly, and his expression also became gentler. It seemed like he wanted to bury the hatchet with Lu Yi. As he spoke, he suddenly stomped his foot. In an instant, the surroundings shook, and flames shot into the sky. Scorching hot lava flowed and churned. A huge space of complex patterns appeared out of thin air, sealing the inside and outside. In an instant, this 1,000-mile area was enveloped by a formation. The flames on Ji Bo-yun's body were especially intense. They actually solidified and clung to his body like a swimming dragon, making him look extraordinary. He had already set up a formation in this place in advance. This formation was obviously prepared for the Sun Flame Beast King, but it was useless against the Sun Flame Beast King. At this time, it was being used against Lu Yi. This change surprised Lu Yi. Ji Bo-yun's attitude clearly showed signs of softening, so Lu Yi did not expect him to change his attitude so quickly. By the time Lu Yi came back to his senses, Ji Buyun was already in front of him. Ferocious and pure soul force surged and crashed against the barrier of Lu Ye's spirit sea. At the same time, the fire dragon on Ji Buyun's body opened its mouth and bit down on Lu Yi. Not only that, two more fire dragons appeared in Ji Bo-yun's hands. They turned into two ropes and wrapped around Lu Yi. If it was 2 years ago when he had just entered the Sunshine Realm, Lu Yi would definitely be at a disadvantage against an experienced Sunshine Realm cultivator like Ji Bo-yun. However, after cultivating in the Spirita's ancestral land for 2 years, his soul-suppressing secret technique had reached a small success. His soul sea barrier had also become much stronger. Therefore, although he could feel Ji Bo-yun's soul power attack, he was not affected. As the sword light flashed, Lu Ye's figure swept out and instantly dodged Ji Bo-yun's attack. At the same time, he slashed out fiercely with his sword. Ji Bo-yun immediately broke out in cold sweat. He had thought that his sudden attack as a late-stage Sunshine Realm cultivator against an early-stage Sunshine Realm cultivator, and within the array he had set up, would not be able to retaliate. Who knew that Li Taibai's reaction would be so fast? His soul power was also ridiculously strong. His soul suppression did not have any effect. In his carelessness, he was almost injured by Lu Yi. As expected, Those who had the right to establish themselves on this giant red star were not simple characters. What are you waiting for? Let's join forces and take him down. He can control the Sun Flame Beast King. With it as a hub, we can control the entire herd of Sun Flame Beasts. The Sun Flame Beasts are born with the ability to refine flaming sun essence. It's very beneficial to our cultivation. Ji Bo Yun roared. He had suddenly attacked without any warning. Jiao Si and Lai Huo were also confused. It was only now that they heard Ji Bo Yun's words, the two of them finally reacted. Yes, they knew that the Sun Flame Beasts had the ability to refine flaming sun essence. In the past, they had thought of using the Sun Flame Beast's ability to increase their cultivation speed. Unfortunately, they could not communicate with the Sun Flame Beasts. After many failed attempts, they could only kill the Sun Flame Beasts and refine their cores. However, things were different now. Li Taibai, a cultivator of the beast taming school, was here. Furthermore, he seemed to have enslaved the Sun Flame Beast King. Therefore, using the Sun Flame Beast's abilities to cultivate was no longer a fantasy. It was actually achievable. As expected, the older the ginger, the spicier it was. Neither of them had thought of this, but Ji Bo Yun had already made his move. The two of them did not hesitate and pounced on Lu Yi from both sides. When Ji Bo Yun shouted, Lu Yi knew that he was in trouble. With his current foundation, he was not afraid of fighting against a late-stage Sunshine Realm cultivator like Ji Bo Yun. Although they had only exchanged blows for a short while, Lu Yi had a rough idea of his current strength. Fighting against people of a higher level was a common occurrence for him. But if Jiao Si and Lai Huo were to join in as well, things would be different. Their cultivations were similar to Ji Bo Yun's. Although they were not as strong as him, the difference was not by much. 1 against 3, there was no way he could win. Even if Lu Yi wanted to escape, now that the array formation had sealed off the area, he would have to break the array formation first. He sighed softly. Why do you have to force me? He was responsible for this matter, but he was in a different position. It was not easy to tell who was right and who was wrong. That was why he said at the beginning that he was willing to compensate the three of them to a certain extent. He could also ensure that their cultivation would not be disturbed in the future. He was not an unreasonable person. But in the cultivation world, there were times when reason did not make sense. Ji Bo Yun valued his ability to tame beasts and wanted to capture him for his own use. Naturally, Lu Yi would not agree. 3 powerful auras locked onto him. Lu Yi suddenly put away his Panshan saber and leisurely took out his sword gourd. Since Ji Bo Yun did not want to reason with him, he could only compete with his fists. He opened the mouth of the sword gourd and aimed it in Ji Bo Yun's direction. He locked onto Ji Bo Yun's figure with his spiritual sense and channeled his spiritual energy. Almost at the same time that Lu Yi took out his sword gourd, Ji Bo Yun suddenly felt a sense of impending doom. Boundless fear descended, and all the hair on his body stood on end. After cultivating for so many years, he had never felt such fear. Especially now that he was in the late stage of the Sunshine Realm, there were very few people in the world who could threaten his life. Until today. Without any hesitation, he suddenly shouted, "With my body, I will combine the formation." The moment his spiritual energy and soul power in the late stage of the Sunshine Realm surged wildly, his entire body resonated with the formation. In an instant, the place where he was standing was enveloped in flames. The flames twisted and swelled continuously. In the blink of an eye, it turned into an indomitable fire giant. As time passed, it continued to grow. This was the secret technique of a formation cultivator. Combining the formation, one's own body and the formation that they had set up. At the cost of burning one's own spiritual energy and spiritual energy, one could obtain more power in a short period of time. This was a secret technique that many formation cultivators would cultivate, but they would not use it easily. This was because once they used it, the lightest result would be a great loss of vitality. If they were not careful, their soul would be destroyed. However, under the threat of death, Ji Bo Yun could no longer care so much. Even though he had used the combining formation, he did not feel safe at all. Instead, the fatal aura was even stronger. Jiao Si and Lai Hua had already avoided it, In fact, the two of them had sensed that something was wrong when Lu Yi took out his sword gourd. Even though Lu Yi did not have any intention of targeting them, they still felt their souls tremble and their hearts tremble. This made them make the right choice. And now, Ji Bo Yun had actually combined the formation with his own body. This made them even more shocked. No one had expected the situation to develop like this. Originally, no one had taken Lu Yi, a newcomer, seriously. He was just in the early stage of the Sunshine Realm. Even if he had the means to control the Sun Flame Beast King, who didn't have some special abilities, cultivators still depended on who was stronger. Without a doubt, the three of them were much stronger than Lu Yi, but the current situation was obviously not right. End of chapter. Chapter 2069. On the giant red star, the towering fire giant roared. In comparison, Lu Ye's figure was as small as an ant. An inconspicuous sword light suddenly shot out. At the same time, the fire giant raised its fist and smashed down on Lu Ye's position. The power of this punch was extremely terrifying. When the fist moved, even the nearby magma was swept up like a dancing dragon. The sword light that flew out was like an embroidery needle in front of this fire giant. However, such an embroidery needle easily pierced through the flame giant's fist, pierced through his entire arm, and smashed into the space between the flame giant's eyebrows. Then, it pierced through the flame giant's body, piercing through the formation barrier that separated the inside from the outside. This array was personally set up by Ji Boyun. Although he was not an array cultivator, Sunshine had a long lifespan. When a cultivator's cultivation reached this level, their strength would increase slowly. Many Sunshine cultivators would also cultivate some external techniques to pass the time. Ji Boyun's talent in array Dao was not bad, so the array he set up was naturally not ordinary. In particular, he used the special environment here to directly increase the array's power by 30%. It was enough to ensure that enemies like the Sun Flame Beast King could not escape from this array. However, even such a tenacious formation was unable to stop the sword light in the slightest. Almost at the instant the sword light touched the array barrier, it directly pierced through it. There seemed to be a crashing sound in everyone's heart. Jiao Si and Lai Hua, who had already dodged, were both horrified. For some reason, the fire giant's aggressive attacks suddenly stopped. Then, its huge body quickly shrunk, like a deflated balloon. In just 3 breaths, all the flames dissipated, revealing the withered figure of Ji Bo Yun. At this moment, Ji Bo Yun's entire body was like a broken porcelain. The surface of his body was full of cracks and blood flowed. He was holding on to his last breath to not die. This was the disadvantage of using the body as an array. If the array was broken, the cultivator would die without a doubt. He stared in Lu Ye's direction with a look of horror on his face and roared, "Xiang Bao! Attribute treasure! For you! For you!" He had never imagined that he would one day die under the attack of an attribute treasure. With his cultivation, he could indeed be considered a peak existence in the starry sky. Very few people could threaten his life, but this definitely didn't include offensive attribute treasures. To be able to easily break through his fire giant's body and break through his formation's attack, there was only a treasure in this world. However, although the number of attribute treasures in this world was not small, they were all limited. Basically, they were all used by the major realms as treasures to protect their realms and would not be used easily, not to mention being carried around by a cultivator. And the cultivator with the treasure was only in the early stage of the Sunshine Realm. Which realm's cultivators were so bold? How could a Sunshine early-stage cultivator bring such a precious treasure around? Such a ridiculous thing was unheard of. He could not get an answer. After he shouted those words, he could no longer hold on. His body shattered like a formation. Lu Yi retracted the much dimmer sword light. He turned to look at Jiao Si and Lai Hua. Even though the two of them were at the late stage of the Sunshine Realm and had seen a lot of things, they were still stunned. It had only been 10 breaths of time since Ji Bo Yun made his move. A late-stage Sunshine Realm cultivator had died just like that. And Ji Bo Yun's last words were even more unbelievable. Just as Ji Bo Yun thought, which realm's cultivator was Li Tai Bai from? Why was he running around with a treasure? Wasn't he afraid of being coveted? Suddenly feeling Lu Ye's gaze, Juicy's heart tightened. But on second thought, although the power of an attribute treasure was strong, it consumed a lot of energy. Many attribute treasures needed to be nourished after being used once. She had seen the change in the sword light just now and naturally knew that Lu Yi could not use the same attack as before. This was an opportunity, a treasure. If she missed this opportunity, she might not have another one in the future. So after a short moment of panic, Jioci's eyes immediately lit up. Her spiritual sense surged as she secretly transmitted her voice to Lai Hua. Lu Yi saw the change in her expression and naturally knew what this woman was planning. Lu Yi didn't care about Jioci's life or death, but this Lai Hua, after pondering for a moment, he said, "Do the two of you have any other advice?" Jioci took a step forward and stared at Lu Yi with burning eyes. "I don't dare to give advice. I just want to borrow something from you." Lu Yi turned to look at her. "What do you want to borrow?" Jioci smiled. "Why do you ask when you already know the answer? You should know what I want to borrow." Lu Yi said indifferently, "Ji Bo Yun is already dead. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you too?" Jioci said in a low voice, "I naturally can't block the power of a treasure. But can you still use that attack just now? Fellow, we've met by chance and have no grievances. But since ancient times, wealth has moved people's hearts. It's a pity to miss such a good opportunity." Lu Yi nodded. "Indeed, I can't use that attack just now." He looked at Lai Hua. "What about you, fellow Taoist? Do you want to borrow that thing too?" Lai Hua shook his head. "I won't. For us barbarian tribe cultivators, our bodies are everything. What use do we have for external objects?" Lu Ye's heart settled. To be honest, if possible, he didn't want to have any conflict with Lai Hua. This was because Lu Yi recognized him as a barbarian tribe cultivator at first glance. He had some friendship with Abdul. This Lai Hua should be one of Abdul's elders. If he killed him, he wouldn't be able to explain it to Abdul. Of course, if Lai Hua insisted on opposing him, he wouldn't be merciful. Fortunately, such a thing didn't happen. This saved him some trouble. Jioci wasn't surprised by Lai Hua's answer. It was clear that Lai Hua had already given her an answer when she transmitted her voice. This was also what she wanted. There was only one treasure. If Lai Hua was really interested in it, the two of them might have to fight to determine who it belonged to. Alright, let's not talk too much. Fellow Taoist, please hand over the treasure. Jioci stared at Lu Yi without blinking. Lu Yi flipped his hand and the treasured gourd appeared. He looked at Jioci indifferently. "You want it? Come and take it yourself." Jioci stared at Lu Yi. Seeing that he didn't panic at all and instead looked calm and composed, as if he didn't put her in his eyes at all, she immediately snorted coldly, pretending to be mysterious. The more Lu Yi was so calm, the more she felt that he was deliberately mystifying things. As she spoke, her body flashed and she pounced forward. But in the next moment, she frowned. This was because she suddenly realized that this treasured gourd seemed a little different from the one she saw just now. Indeed, there was no difference in shape or size. The surface was covered in extremely complicated veined patterns, but upon closer inspection, those veined patterns seemed to be slightly different from the ones she saw before. The world is full of fools. Men die for wealth and birds die for food. As Lu Yi sighed, the mouth of the gourd turned and aimed at Jioci. A ball of fire suddenly flew out and enveloped Jioci. At this moment, Jioci finally experienced the same feeling as Ji Bo Yun. It was a boundless horror that suddenly descended upon her, causing her soul to tremble. It was as if she had encountered the world's greatest calamity. She fiercely urged her magic power to try and dodge, but the strange fire was too fast. Jioci had no room to dodge and was hit directly. In the next moment, a miserable scream rang out. The strange fire suddenly expanded and enveloped Jioci. Lai Hua, who was standing to the side, instantly widened his eyes. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Jioci's blood-curdling screams were extremely shrill, as if she had been subjected to the most vicious torture. She madly channeled her spiritual energy and summoned one treasure after another. However, no matter what she did, she couldn't extinguish the strange fire on her body. Instead, under her resistance, the strange fire burned even more fiercely. "Fellow Taoist, please spare me. Please let me go." Jiusi could no longer hold on. She struggled and begged for mercy. Lu Yi turned a deaf ear to her and only quietly looked at her. Killing Ji Bo Yun was a counterattack because he had no other choice. Under those circumstances, the only thing he could do was to kill the enemy as quickly as possible. He actually didn't want to kill Jiusi and Lai Hua. However, they were courting death. Since things had gotten to this point, Lu Yi naturally couldn't be merciful. He could only kill them. "Lai Hua, save me." Lu Ye's begging had no effect. Jiusi could only turn to Lai Hua. In this short period of time, more than half of her life force had been consumed. Fortunately, she was a cultivator of the fire attribute. Her cultivation was high enough to resist the strange fire of the gourd to a certain extent. Otherwise, she would have died long ago. Lai Hua glanced at Lu Yi. Seeing his indifferent expression, he couldn't help but sigh. He raised his fist and his magic power surged. Then, he brazenly punched in Jiusi's direction. Under this punch, Jiusi, who was still struggling, suddenly stopped breathing. He didn't beg for mercy from Lu Yi. His friendship with Jiusi hadn't reached that level. Although he always said that he would get Jiusi on his bed sooner or later, that was just something he found fun when he was bored. Now that it was a matter of life and death, he was clear about it. He knew that begging for mercy was useless, so he might as well give Jiusi a quick death. Fellow Taoist Lai Hua is kind-hearted. Lu Yi glanced at Lai Hua and activated the fire gourd. The strange fire that hadn't been completely consumed was retracted. Only a charred corpse was left. Of the 3 late Sunshine Realm cultivators, 2 had died in a short period of time. Only Lai Hua was left. Lai Hua slowly shook his head. He didn't have any intention of communicating with Lu Yi. He was also a little panicked because he realized that Lu Yi had at least 2 treasures on him. The gourd that killed Ji Bo Yun and the one that killed Jiusi were obviously not the same. An early Sunshine Realm cultivator carrying a treasure on him was already exaggerated enough. To have 2, it was simply terrifying. Since he had 2, he might have a third. In front of Lu Yi, Lai Hua didn't feel safe at all. He didn't dare to stay in this place for too long. Anyway, the giant red star was here. Lu Yi couldn't keep cultivating here. It wouldn't be too late for him to come back in a few years. End of chapter. Chapter 2070. Lai Hua had thoughts of retreating, but he did not dare to act rashly because he did not know what Lu Ye's attitude towards him was. Even though he did not feel any hostility, Lu Ye's killing intent just now was clearly not easy to get along with. This kind of person who appeared calm on the surface but attacked like lightning was actually the hardest to get along with. Lai Hua knew this very well. He felt pity for Ji Boyun and Jiusi. If Ji Boyun had agreed to the other's proposal at the beginning, he would not have been killed. But of these 2, one coveted the method to control the Imperial Sun Flame Beast King, and the other coveted the treasure. In the end, they both died and he was now in a dilemma. He gritted his teeth and said, "Fellow, this matter has nothing to do with me. Fellow Ji and Jiusi are already dead. Let's end it here." Lu Yi nodded. "It has nothing to do with you, but..." He changed the topic and said with a faint smile, "If I had not acted quickly enough, I would have been attacked by the 3 of you." These words were not wrong. When Ji Bo Yun made his move, he had called out to them. Whether it was Jiusi or Lai Hua, both of them were very tempted by his suggestion. After all, they came here to borrow the special environment of this place to cultivate. If there really was a better way, no one would miss it. Lai Hua knew he was in the wrong and said in a low voice, "Then what does fellow want? Why don't you just say it?" Lu Yi knew that most of the barbarians were straightforward and did not like to beat around the bush. He nodded and said, "In that case, please stay here and help me refine the flaming sun essence. Since you have chosen to cultivate here, you should have the means to refine it." Lai Hua was stunned. "You want me to help you refine the flaming sun essence?" Lu Yi narrowed his eyes at him. "In this world, any unprovoked hostility has a price. What do you think, fellow?" Lai Hua's expression was ugly, his heart was filled with unwillingness, but he also agreed with Lu Ye's words. If he were in Lu Ye's position, he would definitely not let this matter rest. After all, he had indeed shown hostility towards Lu Yi before, but because Lu Yi had acted too quickly, he did not succeed. After struggling for a while, Lai Hua sighed dejectedly. Fine, I will help you refine the flaming sun essence, but there must be a time limit, right? Lu Yi said, how about 1,000 flaming sun essences? He didn't know how efficient the fire was in refining the flaming sun essence, but since it was at the late stage of the sunshine realm, its refining speed shouldn't be too slow. It probably wouldn't take too long to refine 1,000 flaming sun essences. Lai Hua also silently calculated in his heart. The corner of his eyes twitched slightly, but in the end, he still agreed. But then it's settled. Lu Yi happily agreed. He didn't leave Lai Hua behind because he lacked flaming sun essence. It was just that every late-stage sunshine expert had a powerful background. He had killed Ji Boyun and Jiu here. If he let Lai Hua leave, the matter here might be exposed. It would definitely be troublesome. He came here to cultivate because he didn't want to be disturbed. Originally, there were 4 cultivators on the giant red star, but now there were only 2 left. Lu Yi took Ji Boyun and Jiu's storage rings. After a quick check, he found that the 2 of them had decent wealth, which could be considered as some gains. Lai Hua sat not far away, using his own method to refine the flaming sun essence. He had undoubtedly accepted his fate. He was also a reasonable person. If he had insisted on escaping, Lu Yi wouldn't have stopped him. After thinking for a while, Lu Yi took out the beast-attracting incense he kept and lit it. A strange fragrance wafted, spreading under the solar wind. The nearby sun-flame beasts all gathered around the beast-attracting incense, breathing in greedily. They all had expressions of ecstasy on their faces. The sun-flame beast king occupied the best spot. As time passed, more sun-flame beasts were attracted by the beast-attracting incense. The scale gradually increased, and their numbers also increased. Previously, the sun-flame beast king would run out every few days to find its own kind and bring them back to help Lu Yi. However, the efficiency wasn't very high. Now that the beast-attracting incense was lit, it was much more convenient. When the beast-attracting incense burned out, the scale of the sun-flame beasts had increased by more than 3 times. This shouldn't be all the sun-flame beasts on the giant red star, but there should only be a few left. With the sun-flame beast king around, Lu Yi didn't have to worry too much. The sun-flame beasts spread out and focused on refining the flaming sun essence. At first, Lu Yi had to harvest from time to time, but after a few times, he found it too troublesome. He called the sun-flame beast king over and gave him instructions. After a while, he didn't need to harvest anymore. Those sun-flame beasts that finished refining the flaming sun essence would run to him and offer it up. This saved him a lot of trouble. Although some sun-flame beasts were lazy and ran away, it wasn't a big problem. As long as he controlled the sun-flame beast king, he could control the entire sun-flame beast horde. Other than the sun-flame beasts, Lai Hua also contributed his own flaming sun essence. Every 3 days, he would deliver an extremely pure stream of flaming sun essence to Lu Yi. Then he would go somewhere nearby and continue to refine it. Lu Yi realized that he had overestimated the speed at which he could refine the flaming sun essence. Or rather, the raging flame had extremely high requirements for the quality of the flaming sun essence. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him, a late sunshine realm cultivator, to take 3 days to refine one. He could refine a few flaming sun essences a day, but then the quality of the flaming sun essence would be very poor. But now, the flaming sun essence refined by fire was almost the same quality as the sun-flame beast king's, or even better. 1 flaming sun essence every 3 days. Even if he refined it non-stop, it would still take more than 8 years. Lai Hua actually agreed. But to be honest, 8 years was nothing to a late sunshine realm cultivator. Because of this, the fire gourd's efficiency of nurturing the special fire increased exponentially. On average, it could nurture 3 balls of special fire every 2 days. All of them were devoured by the talent tree. All Lu Yi had to do was wait. He didn't idle around. While he waited, he either refined spirit jades to raise his cultivation or swallowed a supreme spirit refining pill to cultivate the soul-subduing secret skill. Although he had achieved a small success in the soul-subduing secret skill, it required him to cultivate it throughout the entire Sunshine Realm. Hence, he couldn't slack off. Day after day, the special fire continued to devour, causing some changes to the talent tree. But Lu Yi didn't know when it would transform. The difficulty of this transformation was many times greater than the previous 3 times. If not for the help of a treasure like the fire gourd, it would be impossible for Lu Yi to find so many fire-type resources comparable to the fire gourd's special fire for the talent tree to devour. On this day, Lai Hua sent over another batch of refined flaming sun essence. He watched Lu Yi activate the fire gourd to absorb it with his own eyes. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. Although he had agreed to Lu Ye's previous request because he was in the wrong, anyone who encountered such a situation would more or less have some resentment in their hearts. Therefore, during these days, he had never communicated with Lu Yi. He was like a laborer under Lu Ye's command, quietly doing his job. But he was also curious. Seeing him like this, Lu Yi couldn't help but smile. Fellow Taoist Lai Hua, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Right now, there are only the 2 of us on this giant red star. I may not be able to stay for long. After I leave, you'll be the only one left. At that time, you won't even have someone to talk to. Hearing him say this, Lai Hua thought that it made sense and simply didn't hold back. He sat down in front of Lu Yi and looked at the fire gourd. If I'm not wrong, this is the treasure of the Yuan world, right? When Jiao Yi died, Lai Hua already had a guess in his heart. After so many days of observation, he was increasingly certain that this was the treasure. Fellow Taoist has good eyesight. Lu Yi nodded. This thing is indeed the treasure of the Yuan world. Then fellow Taoist is from the Yuan world? Lai Hua looked at Lu Yi curiously. He had never heard of such a person in the Yuan world before. Lu Yi shook his head slowly. Instead of answering, he asked, "How long has fellow Taoist been cultivating here?" "It's been a long time." Lai Hua did a little calculation. "Almost 20 years. This was no wonder. Judging from Lai Hua's appearance, he obviously knew nothing about the changes in the outside world. He probably didn't expect that the Wanxiang Sea had already changed. The Wanxiang Galaxy had also lost its rule over the Wanxiang Sea. If he knew about this, he should be able to guess his identity. After all, it was no secret that the fire gourd of the Yuan world was in his hands. The 3-world island wouldn't publicize this matter, and Jiao Yan wouldn't spread the news either. However, the news still spread. It was obvious that the Yuan world had released the news. Lai Hua said again, "Fellow Taoist, the gourd you used to kill Jibuyun is very similar to this treasure. Could it be that this treasure is also one of the treasures of the Vine of Good Fortune?" Lu Yi smiled but didn't say anything. Lai Hua didn't ask any more questions. He wasn't an inarticulate person. Previously, he didn't communicate with Lu Yi mainly because he was annoyed. Now that he had started, the 2 of them would chat from time to time in the following days. It could be considered as passing the time. Lu Yi did not mention anything about Abro to him. That was a separate matter. The reason why he did not make a move on Lai Hua back then was already because of Abro. If Lu Yi had not seen through his identity as a barbarian, he might have really gotten rid of him. "All right, fellow Taoist, you said that you wouldn't stay here for too long. When will you leave?" After a while, Lai Hua suddenly asked about this matter. Lu Yi immersed his mind and checked the progress of the talent tree. He shook his head slowly. "I don't know. When he would leave would depend on the changes in the talent tree." However, after swallowing so many strange flames, the talent tree had changed, but it hadn't reached the stage of metamorphosis. Lu Yi couldn't make a judgment right now. Lai Hua said, "Fellow Taoist, before you leave, can you teach me how to control that Sun Flame Beast King? Don't worry, I'll definitely give you a satisfactory reward." These days, he had seen the Sun Flame Beasts deliver the refined flaming sun essence to Lu Yi with his own eyes. He was extremely envious. If he had such ability, he wouldn't have to waste so much time here. He would have achieved great success long ago. End of chapter. Chapter 2071. After spending some time with Lu Yi, Lai Hua realized that he was an easygoing person. Naturally, Lai Hua wanted to control the Sun Flame Beast King. If he succeeded, it would bring him great benefits. Lu Yi smiled and shook his head. I can't do anything about it. Lai Hua felt sorry for Lu Yi, but he did not say anything else. He thought that Lu Yi could control the Sun Flame Beast King because of his beast-taming skills. This was not something that could be learned by others. However, the truth was that Lu Yi was controlling the Sunshine Beast King with the power of brightness. The wounds on the Beast King had never healed. The Sunshine Beast King was actually very cunning. Without the power of brightness, it would have escaped immediately. It would not have allowed itself to be controlled by Lu Yi. Time passed. Lu Yi had thought that it would not take him too long to achieve his goal in such a unique environment like the giant red star. However, even with the help of the Sun Flame Beasts and the help of the blazing fire, it still took him 3 years before he could see any hope of success. It was conceivable that if not for the Sun Flame Beast King, the Fire Gourd alone would not have been able to hold on for decades. It would have taken him at least 100 years. He had almost used up all the spiritual jades, crystals, and supreme-grade pills he had brought from the 10,000 Elephant Sea. In exchange, his cultivation and soul-soothing secret technique had improved. On a certain day 3 years after he arrived at the giant red star, Lu Yi sat cross-legged on the surface of the giant red star with a calm expression. Even so, Lai Hua, who was at the side, saw through some clues. He looked at Lu Yi curiously. Fellow Taoist, did you encounter something good? Lu Yi nodded. I have some enlightenment. In front of him, sun flame beasts lined up to deliver refined flaming sun essence for the fire gourd to devour. A ball of strange fire was slowly born. After half a day, the strange fire was finally complete. Lu Yi immediately activated the power of the talent tree. Invisible roots reached into the fire gourd and devoured the strange fire in the blink of an eye. The next moment, Lu Yi felt his body tremble slightly, as if something strange had happened. At this moment, the innate skill tree that was burning fiercely in his body suddenly burst out with bright flames, as if a new sun had been born. Immediately after, the rays of light quickly converged at the location of the source spiritual cavity. At this moment, Lu Yi only felt that the connection between him and the talent tree was extremely weak, but his expression was one of joy and excitement. Looking into his body, he could no longer see the talent tree. Only a small flame was burning in his source aperture, like a fire seed. He calmed his heart and felt that there was a wonderful change taking place within the fire seed. It was indescribable and mysterious. Lu Yi had experienced several transformations in his talent tree, but this one gave him the most novel feeling. He immediately knew that he was right. The cost of this transformation couldn't be compared to the previous transformations. His talent tree was probably going to undergo a huge change. Now, he wasn't sure what this change was or what kind of new power the talent tree would give birth to. He could only wait until the fire seed was broken and the talent tree revealed itself again to investigate. And this would take some time, but no matter what, her objective for coming here had been achieved. Her long wait had finally come to fruition at this moment, and Lu Ye's heart was at ease as she let out a light sigh of relief. Lai Hua, who was at the side, did not understand. Lu Yi wasn't in a hurry to leave the giant red star. Now that he had such a rare opportunity to obtain flaming sun essence so easily, he naturally had to store more. In the future, whether it was the fuel for the talent tree or the special fire nurtured by the fire gourd, they would all need to be used. He stayed on the giant red star for another month and collected a large amount of flaming sun essence as backup, all of which were stored in the little flower realm. This much flaming sun essence was enough for the fire gourd to nurture dozens of special fires. It was enough for a short period of time. Moreover, the giant red star was right here, so it wasn't troublesome to come over from the 10,000 Elephant Sea. It wouldn't be troublesome to make a trip there in the future. Fellow Lai Hua. Lu Yi turned to look at Lai Hua beside him. I'm leaving. Lai Hua was a little shocked. You're leaving just like that? Then our previous agreement. It's considered done. Lu Yi nodded. Lai Hua definitely couldn't refine 1,000 flaming sun essences in 3 years. Lai Hua sighed. I'm really the only one left. Almost 3 years ago, Lu Yi said he wouldn't stay here for too long. However, Lai Hua didn't expect Lu Yi to leave just like that, without any warning at all. Also, he didn't even know what Lu Yi was doing these days. All of the flaming sun essences had been devoured by the fire gourd. Logically speaking, even if the fire gourd was a treasure, it shouldn't be able to eat so much. Lu Yi stood up, pulled out the Pan Mountain saber, and shook it slightly. Below the lava, the Sun Flame Beast King that had worked hard for Lu Yi for many years suddenly felt something, then flew towards the depths of the giant red star without looking back. The strange power that had wrapped around its wound had disappeared. It had been waiting for this moment all along. Why would it hesitate? And without its suppression, the Sun Flame beasts gathered here quickly scattered like birds. Lu Yi sensed this. Even though he'd guessed this would happen, he still felt speechless. Fellow Taoist, I hope you'll gain something soon. When you master the divine art, you can come find me at the Three-World Island in the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Lu Yi looked at Lai Hua, then flew away, quickly flying out of the giant red star. The Three-World Island? Lai Hua stood where he was, deep in thought. He had never heard of this spiritual island, and since when did the spiritual island in the 10,000 Elephant Sea allow sunshine to stay? He couldn't be bothered to think too much. Lu Yi had gotten what he wanted and left, but he still had to work hard. After leaving the giant red star, Lu Yi went back the way he came. Along the way, he met cultivators who came here to cultivate or refine the flaming sun essences. The further out he went, the lower the cultivation of the cultivators. He paid special attention to the places he passed by earlier, but didn't see Fei Zhuang and Hong Yan. In this place, the further out it was, the more mobile the cultivators were. They either left after gaining something, or got into an accident in a fight. Anything could happen in 3 years. On the other hand, a sunshine powerhouse like Lai Hua stayed on the giant red star for more than 20 years. Lu Yi had originally planned to give Fei Zhuang and Hong Yan some gifts as thanks for leading the way. Since he didn't meet them, then so be it. He flew towards the worm path. When Lu Yi returned to the Three-World Island, half a month had passed. Sensing his return, Tang Jun and He Baichuan immediately rushed over, ready to report on the situation in the 10,000 Elephant Sea in recent years. In the years that Lu Yi wasn't here, the 10,000 Elephant Sea had undergone many strange changes. In the palace, Lu Yi looked at Tang Jun in surprise. "Old Tang, you really advanced?" Tang Jun chuckled. "What's so difficult about advancing to the late Moonjade stage? I just didn't want to. If I wanted to, I would have advanced to the sunshine level long ago. How could you little brats be the best?" Old Tang had indeed advanced to the late stage of the Moonjade realm. This could be seen from the magic power fluctuations he deliberately displayed. Moreover, after advancing, Old Tang's spirit and appearance had improved a lot. He even looked younger than before. He Baichuan cut in. Yes. You're extremely talented. As for the late Moonjade stage, you've only failed 3 to 5 times. What's the big deal? 3 to 5 times? Lu Yi was surprised. Old Tang waved his hand. Let bygones be bygones. Let's not talk about it. It was obvious that Old Tang's advancement in the late Moonjade stage was not easy. When Lu Yi came back last time, he heard that Old Tang was in seclusion and did not succeed. In the past few years, he must have tried a few more times and finally advanced. Good news. Lu Yi was delighted. Among the cultivators of the 3 realms, other than the cultivators of the 9 regions, the relationship between Lu Yi and Old Tang was the deepest. After all, when the 2 of them were stranded here, it could be said that they depended on each other for a while. That's not the only good news. He Baichuan chuckled. In the past few years, there have been more than 100 new Moonjade stage cultivators on our island. Senior brother Cho Wu, elder Yushi of the Mermaid clan, and junior sister Hua Ci have all gained enlightenment and are now in seclusion to advance to the sunshine level. Lu Ye's eyes lit up. Senior brother Cho Wu and elder Yushi aside, Hua Ci is also advancing to the sunshine level? Cho Wu was the original realm lord of the Jade Conch realm. Although this title was only in name, his cultivation level was indeed the highest in the entire Jade Conch realm. Yuan Xiao was able to advance to the sunshine level earlier because of the good fortune of cultivating in the Wanxiang Sea and the guidance of others. Since Yuan Xiao could advance to the sunshine level, Chou Wu had the potential to do so as well. Elder Yushi was the second elder of the mermaid clan. In terms of cultivation level, he was only below Yan Miao. Lu Yi was not surprised that the two of them were advancing to the sunshine level. However, Hua Ci was also in seclusion. This must have something to do with Small Melon. Small Melon was a starry sky treasure, and Small Melon was Hua Ci's natal pet beast. With a starry sky treasure as her natal pet beast, no matter how amazing Hua Ci's performance was, it would not be an exaggeration. Tang Jun said, "It's not just our island. The overall foundation of the major spiritual islands in the Wanxiang Sea has improved tremendously. The shackles that many cultivators have been stuck in for many years have loosened. The advancement of the Moon Jade stage in the sunshine level has become much easier than before." Lu Yi knew that this must have something to do with the arrival of the general trend. From the looks of it, the closer it was to the arrival of the general trend, the more obvious the changes in the starry sky became. And this change was reflected in the cultivators, which meant that cultivation had become easier. There are also spiritual islands. He Baichuan added, more and more deserted islands have come alive. There are also many spiritual islands that have been upgraded. In recent years, there have been 2 more top-grade spiritual islands in the Wanxiang Sea. The biggest difference between a top-grade spiritual island and a high-grade spiritual island was the birth of its own spirit jade mine. This was a great thing for any force. What about Four Corner Island? What's the situation there? Lu Yi asked. He remembered hearing He Baichuan mention that Four Corner Island had also undergone some positive changes. He Baichuan said, Four Corner Island is still a high-grade spiritual island, but there are already signs of a qualitative change. According to the news from Four Corner Island, there are signs of the birth of a spirit jade mine. I'm afraid it will become a top-grade spiritual island in the future. Chapter 2072. In the years that Lu Yi was not around, the 10,000 Elephant Sea had changed a lot. However, with the deterrence of the Starry Sky treasure, there was not much chaos on the whole. The various forces were quite willing to abide by the rules set by Lu Yi. After chatting with He Baichuan and Tang Jun for a while, Lu Yi left the palace. When he arrived at a large hall, a cultivator on duty immediately greeted him. Island Lord. Lu Yi nodded and instructed, "Go to Heart Island." Speaking of which, ever since the dwarfs established themselves in the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he had never been to Heart Island. This time, he was prepared to take a look and visit Su Yuqing at the same time. Yes. The cultivator on duty responded and quickly began to adjust the teleportation formation here. A moment later, the formation buzzed and shone with light. Lu Ye's figure disappeared. There were now teleportation formations connecting the few top-grade spiritual islands under the control of this realm. It was much more convenient to travel between them than before. What surprised Lu Yi was that Su Yuqing wasn't on Fangsuan Island. Instead, it was Wu Qima who was overseeing this place. After chatting for a while, Lu Yi found out that Su Yuqing had returned to Fangsuan Mountain more than a year ago, and Wu Qima had come over to stand guard. Lu Yi felt rather helpless that he did not find her. Wu Qima, on the other hand, was very enthusiastic and invited him to drink some old wine, making Lu Yi drunk. After returning to the Three-World Island from Heart Island, Lu Yi gave some instructions. Half a day later, he led a group of peak constellation cultivators to the Merfolk territory. In recent years, whenever he was free, he would bring the constellation cultivators of the Three-World Island to the Constellation Hall to advance their Yu Yao. The quality of their art sources would be better if they advanced in the Constellation Hall. This way, the cultivators would have a better future. After advancing their Yu Yao, their cultivation speed would also be faster. From the Merfolk territory, he arrived at the Constellation Hall with ease. He pushed open the dusty door and let the constellation cultivators find a place to advance their Yu Yao. He himself went to a corner of the Constellation Hall and bent down to pick up an item. It was an item that looked like a small tattered umbrella. It was the heavenly Luo umbrella that Xin Yun used to have. This thing had been destroyed by Small Melon's golden light. Lu Yi had thought that it was useless, but later he found out that this thing could be repaired, but not by human means. If it was placed in a spirit jade vein, it could slowly recover, but it would take time to grow. Apart from this, it was to place it together with other supreme treasures. If they were compatible, the supreme treasure would be warm, and the damaged attribute treasure would also have a chance to recover. At first, Lu Yi gave the damaged Heavenly Luo umbrella to Hua Ci, wanting to see if Little Melon's power could repair this treasure. However, the result was that there was no effect. It was obvious that the 3 treasures wishing coin and the Heavenly Luo umbrella were incompatible. Thinking about it, the 3 treasures wishing coin had a powerful sealing power, while the Heavenly Luo umbrella had a defensive power. Naturally, the two had nothing in common. When Hua Ci realized this, she returned the umbrella to Lu Yi. Later on, when Lu Yi came here, she left the umbrella behind. That was a few years ago. At present, the Heavenly Luo umbrella still showed no signs of being repaired, which meant that the Starry Sky treasure, the Constellation Hall, was of no help in repairing the Heavenly Luo umbrella. Since that was the case, she could only place it in the Spirit Jade Mine. This was the safest method, but it would take a very long time. A few days later, most of the constellations that had followed Lu Yi here had advanced to Yuyao. Only a few had failed. Lu Yi wasn't surprised. Not every constellation could advance to Yuyao. Even though the cultivation environment was gradually improving, everyone had their own limits. Moreover, even if they didn't succeed this time, they would still have another chance, as long as their potential wasn't exhausted. Lu Yi led everyone back to the Merfolk clan's territory, then glanced at Hua Ci from afar. Hua Ci was cultivating in seclusion here, her entire body submerged in the seawater. Even Little Melon was beside her, its eyes tightly shut. There was a mysterious resonance between the two of them. She didn't disturb them. It wasn't the time to disturb them. After returning to the 3-world island from the Merfolk clan's territory, Lu Yi had been waiting. He was waiting for his talent tree to complete its transformation. However, this transformation was different from the previous ones. Not only was the effort and price much higher than before, but there was also no sign of the fire seed's rebirth. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. During these 2 months, Lu Yi stayed on the 3-world island. His talent tree hadn't completed its transformation, so it wasn't easy for him to cultivate. However, it wasn't a problem for him to polish his soul-subduing secret technique. It was rare for him to have such leisure time. However, this leisure time was destined to be short-lived. On the calm 10,000 manifestations sea, a star boat flew past at high speed. A pale-faced middle-aged man stood quietly on the star boat. Behind him were 2 other figures, both of whom were dressed in loose robes with hoods covering their bodies, making it impossible to see their faces clearly. Although their appearance was a little strange, it was nothing in the myriad phenomenon sea that could accommodate hundreds of rivers. The middle-aged man in the lead scanned the surroundings with his sharp gaze. When the cultivators who passed by met his gaze, they instinctively felt a chill in their hearts and hurriedly looked away. After a short while, a spirit island appeared in front of them. The middle-aged man said softly, "Let's choose this place." This spirit island wasn't very big. It wasn't a top-grade spirit island, nor was it a high-grade spirit island. It was just a middle-grade spirit island. However, there were many cultivators gathered on it. It was unknown which force they belonged to, but it was just enough to satisfy their requirements. The planetary boat stopped. The middle-aged man turned his head and looked at the 2 people behind him. "Elders, are you ready?" The faces hidden under the hoods slowly lifted, revealing 2 old and withered faces. One of them said weakly, "Hee, there's no need to prepare anything. It's our honor to be able to sacrifice ourselves for the future of our clan before we die." Although the other one didn't say anything, he also nodded solemnly. The middle-aged man was filled with respect. Although these 2 elders didn't have much time left, it was still admirable that they could come here without any hesitation. After pondering for a while, he said, "Actually, there's something I don't understand." The elder who spoke before said, "You want to ask why we chose this place, right?" The middle-aged man nodded. The 10,000 Elephant Sea is indeed one of the central areas of the universe. However, this place is filled with experts. I heard that the master of the 10,000 Elephant Sea has a starry sky treasure. This place doesn't seem to be the best location. Choosing a place like this to act was destined to lead to no good results. The elder said, "Don't ask me. I don't know why either. However, since this is the order of the high priest, he naturally has his reasons." The other elder who hadn't spoken until now said, "I heard the high priest casually mention that the 10,000 Elephant Sea has a weak point. Therefore, we can only choose this place. Today's matter is just to pave the way for the future." Pave the way for a weak point? The middle-aged man didn't understand. "What do you mean?" The second elder slowly shook his head. Obviously, he didn't know the answer either. In the clan, only the high priest who controlled the clan artifact could sense some of the mysteries. No matter how strong the other clansmen were, they didn't have this ability. However, after so many years, the various incidents in the clan all proved the high priest's foresight and boundless wisdom. This is the territory of the Jade Sword Island. What business do the three of you have? If there's nothing important, please leave quickly. A voice came from afar. Apparently, the cultivators of the Jade Sword Island had noticed that the three of them had stayed here for too long and issued a warning. The middle-aged man turned his head and glanced at the cultivator who spoke. The star boat flew forward. "Where is the island master of your esteemed island? We were just about to pay him a visit." "Pay a visit to the island master? May I ask how I should address you?" As soon as he finished asking, he shouted in surprise, "Why aren't you stopping? The three of you aren't doing this to pay him a visit." The star boat was actually moving faster and faster. On the three-world island, Lu Yi was polishing his soul-subduing secret technique when he suddenly sensed something. He flashed out of his palace and hovered in the air, looking into the distance. In that direction he could hear Rizhao's movements, and there was more than one. This caused his face to darken. It had only been a few years, and someone actually dared to break the rules he had set. It seemed that the three-world island had been too quiet these years, and some people dared to not put him in their eyes. Back when he had taken control of the 10,000 Elephant Sea, Lu Yi had made it clear that Rizhao could come to his top-grade spiritual island and guard it, but he couldn't interfere in any battles. That direction was not far from the Mermaid Island. As this thought flashed through Lu Ye's mind, he directly rushed towards the teleportation formation. After entering the main hall, he ordered people to adjust the formation and directly teleported to the Mermaid Island. Although the Mermaid Island was named after the Mermaid Clan, the number of Mermaid Clan cultivators was too small. Therefore, the people of the land of the 9 prefectures were still the majority. Yan Miao and Luan Xiao were guarding the island. When Lu Yi appeared, the two women immediately sensed his aura and immediately went to greet him. After greeting them, Lu Yi asked, "Do you know the details?" Luan Xiao shook her head. "I don't know for now. It happened too suddenly." Yan Miao said, looking at the direction, "It should be the Jade Sword Island that is attacking. However, the Jade Sword Island is only a middle-grade spiritual island, and there is no Rizhao guarding it. Moreover, the aura of the few Rizhao who are attacking is very unfamiliar. Although there were many Rizhao on the 10,000 Elephant Sea now, there weren't many of them. After so many years, everyone had basically come into contact with each other. Whether they were strangers or acquaintances, it was easy to sense them. Let's go take a look." As Lu Yi spoke, he rushed towards the source of the commotion. Yan Miao and Luan Xiao followed closely behind. The battle quickly subsided, but an extremely uncomfortable aura came from the direction of the Jade Sword Island. Lu Ye's heart skipped a beat, as if something extremely bad was about to happen. Just as Lu Yi was thinking this, a buzzing sound suddenly came. The entire 10,000 Elephant Sea suddenly shook, and in an instant, waves swept over. At the same time, a faint red light came from the direction of the Jade Sword Island. In an instant, it became incomparably bright. The red light was like a blood curtain, enveloping the entire Jade Sword Island. It twisted and changed like a living creature. Moreover, Lu Yi also sensed that this red light was like a blood curtain, faintly resonating with something from afar. After a while, they finally arrived at the Jade Sword Island. Lu Yi used his full strength to look inside, and in an instant, his killing intent blazed. Insect Clan. Chapter 2073. Just now, the ones who caused the commotion were actually from the Insect Clan, and 3 of them at that. Their body features were too obvious. Each of them had a carapace covering them. Even the middle-aged man who looked no different from a human now had obvious insect features. On Jade Sword Island, other than the 3 figures of the Insect Clan, there were no other living things. The entire island was filled with corpses, but the strange thing was that the corpses were all deathly pale, as if their blood had been sucked dry. Lu Yi finally understood what had happened. Impressively, it was the 3 insect races Rizhao attacking Jade Sword Island. Jade Sword Island was only a medium-level island. Even if it had a protective array, how could it withstand the attack of the 3 Insect Clan members? That was why it fell in such a short period of time, and even all the cultivators were slaughtered. At this moment, 2 extremely old-looking Insect Clan members stood facing each other. Their faces were filled with pain, and their expressions were ferocious, as if they were enduring great torture. In between them, there was something that looked like a clay jar. It looked extremely simple, and it was unknown which era it was left behind. What made Lu Yi feel horrified was that the surface of the clay jar had blood-red tentacles that pierced through the bodies of the 2 Insect Clan members. He could clearly feel that the clay jar was emitting a terrifying devouring power, swallowing all the foundation of the 2 Insect Clan members. Even though they were in endless pain, they did not struggle to resist. Lu Yi did not know what they were doing, but it was impossible for him to leave them alone. The 3 Insect Clan members suddenly appeared here and did such a cruel thing. There must be some conspiracy. Especially since Lu Yi knew that the mysterious Insect Clan High Priest knew the truth of the Great Influence more than anyone else. The middle-aged Insect Clan member who was standing guard at the side noticed Lu Yi's arrival and immediately rushed towards him. "Stop him!" Lu Yi shouted. In a flash, he passed by the middle-aged Insect Clan member and raised his hand to summon the fire gourd. Using his Fa-Li, he spat out a strange fire towards the 2 old Insect Clan members. He instinctively felt that something was wrong, so he did not show any mercy. The strange fire fiercely fell on the 2 Insect Clan members in an instant, enveloping them. However, in the next moment, there was a sudden change. The clay jar emitted a red light, and where the light passed, the strange fire quickly disappeared. Not annihilation, but disappearance. It gave Lu Yi the feeling that it was being absorbed by something. This was the first time he had encountered such a strange thing. The fire gourd was a treasure with tyrannical power. Previously, when he was dealing with Jiu Si on the giant red star, he had only needed to casually burn her soul away. But now it had disappeared. Could it be that the clay jar was also a treasure? But even if it really was a treasure, it shouldn't have such a miraculous power. This kind of unforeseen event was obviously not right. The sacrifice is already done. You can't stop it. Old laughter rang out. It was the voice of the old insectoid on the left. Lu Yi's expression was cold. He immediately put away the fire gourd and took out the sword gourd. But before he could make another move, the 2 insectoids suddenly screamed. Their old bodies were sucked into the clay jar in the middle like flowing water. At the same time, the clay jar shattered. The 10,000 elephant sea once again sent out a huge tremor, but Lu Yi didn't seem to feel it. He only stared at the red whirlpool in the center of the Jade Sword Island. That place was originally where the clay jar was. After it shattered, the red whirlpool appeared. The whirlpool wasn't too big. It was only the height of 3 people, but the strange aura coming from the whirlpool was something Lu Yi had never felt before. It was an extremely strange aura. Lu Yi immediately retreated, distancing himself from the whirlpool. He had a feeling that if he got too close and got sucked in, he wouldn't have a good ending. Almost at the same time the whirlpool formed, in the depths of the starry sky, within the reincarnation tree's main body, the old reincarnation tree suddenly raised its head and looked in this direction. After a short while, it muttered to itself, "The loophole has been pried open." Is this the direction of the 10,000 Elephant Sea? Fortunately, with that person suppressing it, there shouldn't be too much trouble. He lowered his eyes and sighed softly. The reincarnation tree. I'm afraid it won't be able to hold on this time. The insectoids have jumped out. They must have sensed something. I have to make plans early. Near the Jade Sword Island, the middle-aged insectoid fought with Yen Miao and Luan Xiao for a while and then hurriedly fled for his life. His mission had been completed, so he naturally had to leave this troublesome place. It wasn't that he wasn't a match for the two women. Lu Yi immediately sensed something and chased after him. Today's change was too sudden, and he was now confused. The two old insectoids were already dead, so he could only capture this middle-aged insectoid and ask him about the situation. What kind of sacrifice was the insectoids performing? What was with that red whirlpool? He could only look for clues from the insectoid. However, the insectoid was at the late stage of the Sunshine Realm, so it wouldn't be easy for Lu Yi to catch up with him. Fortunately, in front of the insectoid, a tyrannical aura suddenly appeared and rushed towards him. Jiao Yan. She obviously came from the Mermaid Island. She probably sensed something strange here and teleported to the Mermaid Island just like Lu Yi. She just happened to intercept the middle-aged insectoid's escape route. The insectoid was shocked. He had fled in this direction because he sensed that Lu Yi and the others were coming from this direction. He was certain that there were no other Sunshine Realm cultivators in this direction. Who would have thought that another one would suddenly appear? Moreover, the aura was extraordinarily strong. She was obviously at the peak of the Sunshine Realm. Terrified, he quickly dashed to the side. Lu Yi snorted coldly. A drop of precious blood exploded, and he activated the blood escape technique. His speed increased sharply, and he caught up with the insectoid in less than 10 breaths. The sea of blood spread out and enveloped the insectoid. 3 breaths later, Jiao Yan charged into the sea of blood. The sound of an intense battle could be heard from the sea of blood. A moment later, the sea of blood receded. Lu Yi carried the middle-aged insectoid who was covered in blood and gasping for breath, and said in a cold voice, "I ask, you answer. If you dare to say no, I'll make you beg for death." With his and Jiao Yan's combined strength, a late-stage Sunshine Realm cultivator wouldn't be able to cause any waves in his sea of blood. The middle-aged insectoid snickered and spat out a mouthful of blood at Lu Ye's face. "Kill me!" The blood was stopped by Lu Ye's spiritual power. It was obvious that he didn't care about his life at all. Very good. Lu Yi stabbed his sword into the insectoid's heart and twisted it. The insectoid's eyes widened. His body stiffened for a moment, and then he went limp. Lu Yi threw the insectoid to Miao Yan, who had hurried over. "Take him back and look after him. I'll deal with him later." He didn't kill the insectoid. He only heavily injured him and left him with a little chance of survival. When the matter here was settled, he could use the soul battle to pry into the insectoid's memory and see if he could find any useful information. "What happened?" Jiao Yan asked in a low voice. Lu Yi turned to look at her and replied, "I don't know much." He then told her everything that he saw. Ever since Jiao Yan revealed her true appearance to him outside the Yuan realm, they hadn't seen each other again. Lu Yi could feel that Jiao Yan had been deliberately avoiding him. Since that was the case, he didn't want to force her. If it weren't for this unforeseen event, Jiao Yan probably wouldn't have met him face to face. "Let's go take a look." Jiao Yan heard him and rushed towards Jade Sword Island. It wasn't just the two of them who were rushing towards Jade Sword Island. At this moment, all the Sunshine cultivators in Wanxiang Sea were rushing over. The commotion just now was too big, and it really made people curious. Naturally, they would come over to investigate the situation. Soon, they arrived at Jade Sword Island. Jiao Yan's expression changed as she looked at the blood-red vortex. "This is, senior sister, do you recognize it?" Lu Yi asked. Jiao Yan shook her head. "I don't, but the aura coming from it seems to be useful to me." "Useful to you?" Lu Yi was surprised. Jiao Yan was already at the peak of sunshine. The aura that was useful to her was definitely not ordinary. "I don't know." Jiao Yan's face was full of confusion. She was clearly in a state of confusion. She could feel that the aura coming from the blood-red vortex was very useful to her. If she could cultivate in this environment for a long time, she might be able to reap great benefits. But this feeling was very vague, as if there was a layer between them. While the two were talking, ripples suddenly appeared in the blood-red vortex. Vaguely, a figure could be seen inside. Something is coming, Lu Yi immediately judged. Is this the insect path? In fact, when Lu Yi first saw the blood-red vortex, he felt that it was somewhat similar to the insect path. But he couldn't understand why the insect race would pay the price of 2 sunshine cultivators to open something similar to the insect path. Where does the other end of the blood-red vortex lead to? Almost at the same time as Lu Ye's voice fell, a figure squeezed out of the blood-red vortex. It was indeed squeezing, as if it took a lot of effort to pass through the blood-red vortex. It was an existence with the head of an ox and the body of a human. There were 2 ox horns on his forehead. The left horn was broken, and the cut was smooth and neat. It was unknown what cut it off. This was a Yao. He was extremely tall and carried a club bone in his hand. His nostrils exhaled a fiery aura. His entire body exuded an extremely fierce aura. It was as if he had just returned from a bloody battlefield. The spiritual power fluctuations on his body were not weak either. He was in the late sunshine stage. Walking out of the blood-red vortex, the ox demon looked around and fixed his gaze on Lu Yi and Jiao Yan. He raised the club bone in his hand and asked in a booming voice, 2 little insects, where is this? But before Lu Yi could answer, he suddenly sniffed around. Then his expression changed. No, this is not the Star Abyss. This is a slaughterhouse. As if it had discovered something interesting, the bull monster pounced towards Lu Yi as soon as it finished speaking. Be careful, Jiao Yan shouted. She flashed in front of Lu Yi and met the ox demon head-on. The moment their spiritual power collided, Jiao Yan's body shook and she was immediately sent flying. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. In terms of cultivation, she had reached the peak. Even if there were people stronger than her in this starry sky, they would not be able to defeat her so easily. But this ox demon who had walked out of the blood-red vortex had done it. It's the new year. In a trance, it's the new year again. Old Mo wishes all the officials and lords a smooth journey, good luck, good health, and rolling in wealth. Chapter 2074. The moment they collided, Jiao Yan clearly sensed the opponent's cultivation. It should have been weaker than hers, but she was the one at a disadvantage. This was inconceivable. Just as she steadied herself, she saw Lu Yi flying towards her uncontrollably. He saw that Jiao Yan was no match for the ox demon and rushed to help her, but he was sent flying by the ox demon's staff. Jiao Yan quickly steadied herself and blocked Lu Ye's back with her hands. She channeled her magic power into him, helping him to neutralize the momentum. Lu Ye's right hand trembled slightly. He suppressed the roiling blood in his chest and said in a low voice, "Senior sister, be careful. There's something wrong with this guy." The ox demon that suddenly appeared from the blood-red vortex was different from all the other Rizhao he had seen before. In terms of cultivation, this ox demon was actually about the same as the captured insect Rizhao, but their real strength was far from each other. There seemed to be an extremely strange power hidden in his opponent's mana. It was this power that made his mana more resilient and more destructive. Otherwise, with his current foundation, it would not be so difficult for him to fight a late Sunshine Realm cultivator alone. However, that instant of confrontation had allowed him to clearly realize one thing. He was actually no match for this bull demon. Jiao Yan undoubtedly felt the same. She used her divine sense and said, "I'll hold him back. You kill him." Jiao Yan originally had a lot of doubts, but this ox demon that appeared out of nowhere was obviously not someone she could communicate with. The opponent was so strong that she could only kill him first. Lu Yi nodded. At the same time, he pressed his hand on Jiao Yan's shoulder and channeled his magic power. Jiao Yan felt something and roughly understood Lu Ye's plan. She reached out and grabbed at the void, and a silver spear appeared in her hand. She waved the spear gently, and her aura flowed. It was a valiant and heroic move. The ox demon just stood there calmly and hooked his finger at Jiao Yan with a contemptuous look. He obviously did not put Jiao Yan in his eyes. Jiao Yan was furious. She rushed forward with her spear and fought with the ox demon in the blink of an eye. Jiao Yan used her magic weapon. She was undoubtedly going all out. In this state, there were not many opponents in the entire universe who could match her. Spear shadows filled the sky. The secret technique was exquisite. On the other hand, the ox monster's movements looked extremely clumsy and slow. However, such an ox monster was able to block all of Jiao Yan's full-powered attacks with ease. Jiao Yan's eyes were trembling. On one hand, she was shocked by the ox demon's strength. On the other hand, she was excited because she suddenly saw her future path from this ox demon. Although it was just a trace of it, it was still hope. Since ancient times, countless peak Rizhao level cultivators. Star Abyss. What is this place? She had never heard of it before. Outside the intense battle, Lu Yi had already taken out his sword gourd. This bull monster was definitely the strongest monster he had encountered so far. Even Jiao Yan, who had gone all out, was suppressed by it, let alone him, who was only in the early phase of the Sunshine Realm. If he wanted to kill this bull monster, he could only rely on the power of the sword gourd. Jiao Yan had made the suggestion because she knew that he had a spirit treasure. The mouth of the calabash turned upside down. Sword light flashed. Lu Yi shouted, "Senior sister." When the voice rang out, a spirit pattern appeared out of nowhere on Jiao Yan's shoulder. It quickly turned into a circle of light and enveloped her. It was the void spiritual tattoo that Lu Yi had left on her. At the same time, a void spiritual tattoo appeared beside Lu Yi. The sword light pierced through Jiao Yan's shadow and went straight for the ox demon's strong body. Obviously, the bull demon hadn't expected this turn of events. The moment he sensed that something was wrong, his body shook and he shouted, "Coiling dragon!" A dragon roar faintly sounded. A dragon shadow suddenly appeared on his body and coiled around his waist. The dragon raised its head and bit the sword light. The sword light from the calabash was actually bitten by the dragon head. The sound of metal grinding against metal was extremely ear-piercing. The sword light became brighter and brighter, but it could not break through the dragon's bite. Lu Yi was shocked. Ever since he was promoted to Sunshine, he had truly understood the power of the attribute treasure. He had repeatedly used the attribute treasure to kill powerful enemies with ease. Even a powerhouse like Great Demon Venerable Zixien could not resist the terrifying power of the attribute treasure, but this bull demon had done it. What kind of secret technique was that? What kind of method was that? Lu Yi had no time to think. He gritted his teeth and desperately urged the sword light. He was the owner of the calabash, so the sword light was naturally controlled by him. The effect was minimal. The bright sword light slowly pierced forward at a speed visible to the naked eye, but it was tightly bitten by the dragon's bite. If it did not break through the dragon's bite, it could not hurt the ox demon's body. Lu Yi could feel that the power of the sword light was rapidly weakening under such a stalemate. The power of the calabash was strongest at the beginning. After killing the enemy and encountering obstacles, it would be consumed and then needed to be recovered. But there was no chance for Lu Yi to recover. The ox demon used a secret technique that Lu Yi did not understand at all to block the sword light from the calabash. As time passed, the bright sword light quickly dimmed. In just a few breaths of time, the sword light shattered with a crisp crack. The sword light that cost hundreds of millions of spirit jades to nurture was completely gone. If he wanted to restore the power of the calabash, he had to nurture it again. And the dragon shadow that coiled around the ox demon was clearly not as solid as before. The ox demon lowered his head to look at the dragon shadow on his body and flew into a rage. His scarlet eyes glared at Lu Yi. "You dare damage my Dao power? Take your treasure to make up for it." Was it easy for him to painstakingly condense this bit of Dao power? This was his capital to establish himself in Star Abyss. He did not expect it to be damaged in a slaughterhouse. When the last word fell, he wrapped himself in a demonic wind and charged at Lu Yi. "Fellow Taoist Lu, I'll help you." A vigorous voice came over and pounced at the ox demon. Lu Yi knew who it was when he heard the voice. It was Five Color Island Sui Lin. Three World Island and Five Color Island had always been on good terms. Lu Yi had interacted with Sui Lin several times over the years and was not a stranger. For Sui Lin to appear here, it was obvious that he had sensed the commotion here and came to investigate. Not only him, there were also other Sunshine Immortals overseeing the other top-notch spiritual islands rushing over. Some were already nearby, and some were still on the way. Be careful! Lu Yi hurriedly shouted a warning. Sui Lin clearly did not know how powerful this ox demon was. Charging out rashly would definitely not end well. Scram! The ox demon was in a violent mood. Facing Sui Lin's attack, he casually swung his rod. Big words. Sui Lin came quickly and left quickly. His sturdy body fell diagonally towards the myriad elephant sea under the impact of the huge force. Seeing that he was about to fall into the sea, a hand grabbed his arm and lifted him up. Sui Lin had a fearful expression. He raised his head and was extremely grateful. So it's fellow Taoist Gu Tai. Thank you for your help. Gu Tai nodded. Fellow Taoist Sui Lin is too polite. What's the situation with this demon? He had also just arrived here and did not understand the situation. When he saw Sui Lin in danger, he helped him. Otherwise, if Sui Lin really fell into the myriad elephant sea, he would definitely be eroded by the seawater. With Sui Lin's cultivation, his life would not be in danger. However, after being eroded, his magic power would become impure, which was also a big problem. I'm not sure. His strength is strange. Sui Lin recalled the moment when he came into contact with the ox demon. He was actually sent flying without any strength to fight back. That was because he was from the stone tribe and had the endurance. If it was someone else with a weak physique, he would have been injured. This is the insect path? Gu Tai noticed the red whirlpool in the center of the Jade Sword Island. He vaguely felt that it was an insect path, but it was not the same as a normal insect path. Even with his vast knowledge, he could not determine it in a short time. Almost at the same time he was observing the red whirlpool, ripples appeared in the whirlpool, and a figure was faintly discernible within. Someone is coming, Gu Tai said in a low voice. At the same time, Lu Yi, who was teaming up with Jiao Yan to fight the ox demon, also noticed the change in the red whirlpool. His expression immediately fell. The ox demon that suddenly appeared was so powerful. If another one came, who on the myriad elephant sea could fight against it? From the battle just now, it could be seen that only attribute treasures could pose a threat to an expert like the ox demon. However, the power of the two attribute treasures in his hands had been exhausted. What could he use to fight against the enemy? As this thought flashed, Lu Ye's divine sense surged and transmitted his voice everywhere. Fellow Taoists, the change in the Jade Sword Island today is related to the insect race. The enemy is powerful and has strange abilities. Please join forces to fight against the enemy. Do not underestimate them. It's related to the insect race. Many people in the Sunshine looked serious. As early as a few years ago, the Three-World Island had revealed the conspiracy of the insect race and the arrival of the general trend. These years, all the major forces had been investigating this matter, but there were no clues. They only knew that this was a disaster that was about to sweep through the entire starry sky. Unexpectedly, today's matter was also related to the insect race. Then, it must be related to the arrival of the general trend. If so, they could not stay out of it. No matter what, they had to deal with today's trouble first. Perhaps they could find some clues through today's matter. Thinking so, Gu Tai and Sui Lin looked at each other and rushed towards the red whirlpool. Before the two of them could get close, a figure squeezed out of the whirlpool. Sure enough, it's related to the insect race. Gu Tai's expression was cold because the one who came was an insect race member. As soon as this insect race member appeared, he sniffed and then looked in the direction of Mermaid Island. There's the aura of a clansman. He's alive. The captured insect race member Ri Zhao Ri was escorted back to Mermaid Island by Luan Xiaoa. He could actually smell the traces. Gu Tai and Sui Lin had already joined forces to fight. Against the insect race, the two of them would not be lenient. Sui Lin, who had suffered a loss once, was much more careful this time. However, after fighting for a while, he was shocked. This was because, in terms of cultivation, this insect race member who suddenly appeared had a cultivation level that was similar to him and Gu Tai. However, in a 1 versus 2 situation, he was able to defeat Gu Tai and Gu Tai. In just a short while, they both suffered injuries of varying degrees. Fortunately, Ri Zhao Ri from the other spiritual islands arrived in time and joined in, barely stabilizing the situation. End of chapter. Chapter 2075. Following the commotion, more and more Rikutsu rushed here. After the insect, another enemy appeared from the red vortex. The battle between the 3 groups near Jade Sword Island was extremely intense. Lu Ye's battlefield had already turned into a sea of blood. He and Jiao Yan were not the only ones in the sea of blood. There were also 2 other Rikutsu who joined later, and their cultivation was at the middle stage. But even with the convenience of the sea of blood, the 4 of them joining forces to deal with the bull demon was unable to gain any advantage. The bull demon's strength was far beyond imagination. The other 2 groups were also like this, fighting with numbers. Although there were not many Rikutsu on Wanxiangxi's side, there were at least 20 of them. On Lu Ye's side, it was 4 against 1. The other 2 groups were even more exaggerated, with 7 or 8 Rikutsu joining forces to besiege one enemy. But even so, no group was able to gain the upper hand. On the contrary, the Rikutsu on Lu Ye's side were constantly injured. One of them was even accidentally injured and had to withdraw from the battlefield. Lu Yi was anxious. The current situation was extremely unfavorable for his side. The red vortex was still there. If 3 experts could walk out from it, then there might be more. Once such a situation occurred, there would be no more Rikutsu on Wanxiangxi to stop the enemy. He had to kill one of them first, or find a way to close the red vortex. But this thing was opened by the insect race through an inexplicable ritual. Perhaps other than the insect race, no one knew how to close it. Then he had to kill one of them first. Lu Yi made up his mind. In an instant, he was already behind the bull demon. He slowly exhaled, and all his qi, blood, and fa li fiercely poured into his right arm. In an instant, his right arm swelled up. The Panshan saber was suddenly unsheathed. Saber drawl, he had not used this move for a long time. Relatively speaking, the power of a treasure was stronger, and it was easier to use. But he had not given up on this move. He had been using his own fa li to nourish the spirit pattern in the scabbard. Under the premise of not using a treasure, this was definitely the strongest move he could use. The saber slashed on the bull demon's protective fa li. Just like in the previous battle, he felt an incomparably tough feedback. Even though he had experienced it many times, Lu Yi still felt incredulous. It was hard to imagine that the bull demon could refine his fa li to such a degree. The saber draw's power was still very strong. The previous attacks that landed on the bull demon's body could not even break through his protective fa li. But this one, there was some effect. After the violent power broke through the bull demon's protective fa li, it cut a small wound on his body. Oh? The bull demon revealed an interested look. You actually managed to injure me. Well done. A palm slapped down on Lu Ye's head, but Lu Yi was already prepared. He dodged into the depths of the blood sea, a helpless expression on his face. If the saber draw could not kill the enemy, his other moves would be even more useless. Moreover, the power of brightness was easily neutralized by the enemy. One must know that even if he only cut a small wound on the bull demon's body just now, the power of Fang had already entangled it. The power of Fang had become stronger as he advanced to sunshine. Even a powerhouse like Changfeng had to spend several days to slowly dissolve it, but for this bull demon, it was actually a piece of cake. Could he only ask Hua Ci to come out? The power of a treasure could not kill the bull demon, but a real treasure would not. The strongest on the Wanxiangxi was not him, nor was it Jiao Yan. It was Hua Ci's little melon. But he had seen Hua Ci in seclusion at the mermaid clan's territory. If possible, he did not want to disturb Hua Ci at this juncture. But now, There was no other way but to ask Hua Si to come out. Just as he was thinking this, a violent tremor suddenly came from the bottom of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. This kind of tremor had occurred twice before when Rizhao had opened the red vortex. Lu Yi didn't know what was going on. But now it appeared again, and this time the tremor was even greater than the previous two. Accompanied by this tremor, a vast and boundless aura gushed out from the depths of the Wanxiang Sea. In the next moment, the aura condensed into a beam and descended somewhere. In the Blood Sea, Lu Yi looked up at the source of the aura. His vision penetrated the Blood Sea and saw the situation on Jade Sword Island. This is... His expression changed, revealing a surprised expression. Constellation Hall. A sunshine's exclamation came from outside. Because at this very moment, a simple and unadorned hall had appeared on the Jade Sword Island. Impressively, it had the appearance of the Constellation Palace, but what appeared here was clearly not the main body of the Constellation Palace. It was only a projection because it looked illusory. The projection of the Constellation Hall wrapped the red vortex tightly. In the Blood Sea, the bull demon, who had been calm and unruffled even when surrounded by the four sunshines, changed his expression. "There's a treasure here?" As if he had seen something inconceivable, he shouted and immediately rushed toward the red vortex. Not only him, but the other two experts who came out of the red vortex also rushed in that direction. They were extremely frightened, like stray dogs. They were like two different people compared to their previous invincible strength. Lu Yi sensed the bull demon's movements. He hesitated for a moment, but did not stop him. Instead, he dispersed the Blood Sea and let him go. No matter what the appearance of the Constellation Hall's projection meant, just from the bull demon's reaction, it was definitely not a good thing for these uninvited guests. They seemed to want to leave through the red vortex. Lu Yi did not have the confidence to keep them here. Since that was the case, letting them go was not a bad choice. But what Lu Yi did not expect was that these three uninvited guests, who were fine when they came, could not go back. The three figures were blocked outside the Constellation Hall's projection. No matter how hard they tried, they could not break through the projection seal. Moreover, as time passed, the Constellation Hall's projection continued to shrink, and the red vortex slowly became unstable in the process. Lu Ye's eyes lit up. He was still having a headache about how to close the red vortex. He did not expect the Constellation Hall to use its power. Looking at the situation when the Constellation Hall's projection shrank to a certain extent, the red vortex would definitely collapse. The Constellation Hall was indeed sentient. Back when he first came into contact with the Constellation Hall, Lu Yi had such a conjecture. Back then, the Constellation Hall pulled him in alone and gave him a strange mission. Although he did not leave his name on the Constellation list, he gained many benefits because of it. Thinking back to the bull demon's words just now, it was obvious that the Constellation Hall had sensed the red vortex and was using its own power to destroy it. With the treasure's power, the three sunshine experts in the Wanxiang Sea could not do anything. After a while, the three of them clearly realized that things were not going well. They looked at each other and fled in three different directions. Seeing this, Lu Yi was shocked and hurriedly shouted, "Stop them, don't let them escape." Previously, he was willing to let the three sunshine experts go because he was not as strong as them and could not do anything to them. However, since they could not go back, he could not let them escape. Once experts with such strength escaped from here, it would be a disaster no matter which galaxy they went to. Other than the galaxies where the top realms were located, no other galaxy in the universe could take out the resources of the Wanxiang Sea to deal with them. He had to kill them all. Even if he could not kill all three of them, killing one would be good enough. After shouting, Lu Yi took the lead and rushed toward the bull demon. Jiao Yen held her long spear and followed closely by her side. Seeing this, the other sunshine experts did not dare to be negligent. They followed the previous formation to intercept the other two enemies. The bull demon was in the late sunshine realm, so he was very fast. However, no matter how fast he could not be faster than Lu Yi, who had activated the blood escape technique. In an instant, Lu Yi caught up with him. The sea of blood spread out and enveloped him again. Jiao Yen took the opportunity to kill her way into the sea of blood. Under Lu Ye's protection, she stabbed her spear at the bull demon. The bull demon's senses were very sharp. Moreover, he had fought with Jiao Yen many times before, so he naturally knew how strong Jiao Yen was. He did not dare to be careless and struck her with his staff. Jiao Yen gritted her teeth and blocked the attack. With a loud bang, the sea of blood churned. Jiao Yen was stunned and blinked her eyes. This time, she was not sent flying by the bull demon like before. The power of the bull demon's attack was obviously weaker than before. She was not sure and continued to fight the bull demon. Lu Yi had already taken out a musical note and was about to contact the three-world island and ask them to invite Hua Si out of seclusion. At this moment, Jiao Yan's voice was heard. "He's become weaker." Lu Yi was stunned. Although I don't know why, he's indeed become weaker and weaker. Jiao Yan had already fought with the bull demon several times. She could clearly feel the bull demon's counterattack. As a peak sunshine expert, she could not be wrong about this. Lu Yi immediately paid attention to the bull demon and found that it was just as Jiao Yan said. The bull demon had become much weaker. In just a short moment, the bull demon had gone from being invincible to being on par with Jiao Yan. Lu Ye's heart skipped a beat. She quickly spread out her spiritual sense and checked the situation of the other two groups. She found that the other two groups were the same as her. The other two strong opponents, who were originally unparalleled in the world, were obviously weakened. And this change, Lu Yi turned her head and looked in the direction of the Jade Sword Island. She saw the shrinking Constellation Palace projection and the swaying red vortex. Her heart gradually became clear. From the looks of it, it was due to the suppression of the red vortex that caused the strength of the bull demon and the other experts to weaken. No wonder the three of them could not wait to return. It was obvious that they knew what would happen next. There's no need to disturb Hua Si. Lu Yi raised the mountain pandao in her hand, looked in the bull demon's direction, and rushed forward. It's time for our turn. Looks like I've gained a lot this time. I might be able to use this opportunity to clarify a lot of things that I didn't understand before. I might even be able to find out more information about the general situation. Lu Yi had a feeling that the three enemies who had appeared out of nowhere were closely related to the general situation. Wishing everyone a happy new year. I wish everyone luck in the year of the dragon and a bright future. I'll be going out to pay my New Year's greetings. I'll be a little busy during the first month. Sometimes I have to go out or have guests at home. I can only update once. End of chapter. Chapter 2076. The Blood Sea was turbulent as several figures shuttled back and forth. After the Constellation Palace's projection suppressed the red vortex, the originally invincible bull demon's strength rapidly weakened. After a while, the bull demon was besieged by Lu Yi and the others and had no strength to fight back. At this time, the strength he displayed was the standard of a normal late-stage sunshine expert. His previous strength was obviously not right. Jiao Yan's spear pierced through the bull demon, and the other two sunshine experts pounced on him. Lu Yi took advantage of the situation and slashed with his blade. The battle ended. The bull demon was heavily injured and unconscious. At this moment, he had lost the ability to easily dissolve the power of brightness. A strange force wrapped around his wound, hindering his recovery. Lu Yi kept the Blood Sea and looked at the other two battlefields. Without exception, the other two enemies were also taken down. No one killed them. Obviously, all the sunshine experts were curious about the strength they had displayed. Naturally, they wanted to keep them alive. A group of sunshine experts gathered at Lu Ye's side. Now that he was the master of the Wanxiang Sea and was the first to arrive, everyone naturally wanted to ask about the situation. However, before everyone could gather together, something happened on the Jade Sword Island. The red vortex suppressed by the Constellation Palace's projection rippled violently, and a black shadow loomed on the other side. Something is coming. Jiao Yan obviously saw the change on the other side. She clenched her silver spear and secretly urged her "Hey." Lu Ye's expression was solemn. He had deeply experienced the bull demon's strength, so he was naturally very vigilant. After carefully observing for a while, he felt relieved. It shouldn't be coming. Although he didn't know why the red vortex alarmed the Constellation Palace, with the power of the treasure suppressing it, no matter what kind of strong existence was on the other side, it wouldn't be as easy as before. This could be seen from the fact that the shadow on the other side couldn't condense. And according to the current situation, the red vortex wouldn't even last long before it shattered. Almost at the same time as Lu Ye's voice fell, the Constellation Palace's projection covering the red vortex suddenly faded inexplicably. This projection wasn't a real entity, and it looked illusory and ethereal. Now that it faded, it was almost undetectable. At this moment, the shadow on the other side suddenly condensed, and the red vortex shook violently. "Not good," Lu Yi exclaimed. This situation was completely different from what he had expected. He had no idea why the projection of the Constellation Hall would suddenly fade. However, this obviously gave the other party an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. The red vortex wriggled. The fourth uninvited guest had arrived at the myriad phenomenon sea today. Judging from the blurry shadow just now, Lu Yi thought that some fierce enemy was going to come out, but when he saw what it was this time, he couldn't help but be stunned. Jiao Yan was also dumbfounded. "What is this?" Jiao Yan frowned. "A bridal sedan?" Lu Yi replied hesitantly. The main reason was that the scene before his eyes was too miraculous. This time, the thing that had charged into the myriad phenomenon sea from the red vortex was not a living being of flesh and blood, but a bridal sedan. It looked like something used in the mortal world to pick up a bride and get married. The bridal sedan was covered with red decorations, and there were 2 large red flowers inlaid on both sides of the sedan. It looked very festive. The other Rizhao also saw this strange scene, and they were all surprised. No one could figure out what was going on, and what was this bridal sedan. Many Rizhao probed with their divine senses, but in the investigation of the many Rizhao, this bridal sedan was the most ordinary one. There was nothing special about it. The more this was the case, the more vigilant the Rizhao became. Something strange that could charge out of the red vortex could not be ordinary no matter how they thought about it. The fact that they couldn't detect it meant that this bridal sedan was strange beyond imagination. A soft groan was heard. It was the unconscious bull demon slowly waking up. The physique of the demon clan was indeed strong. Even after suffering such serious injuries, he was able to wake up. The other 2 uninvited guests were still unconscious. When the bull demon opened his eyes, he realized that he was bound. He turned his head and looked around. His gaze suddenly fixed on the bridal sedan, and he immediately exclaimed, "A ghost sedan!" Lu Yi turned his head and looked at him. His heart skipped a beat. The bridal sedan and the bull demon should have come from the same place. Moreover, from the bull demon's reaction, he obviously recognized this bridal sedan and knew something. He immediately asked, "What is this? Tell me everything you know." The bull demon said eagerly, "Yes, take me there first. I want to get on the sedan. When I get on the ghost sedan, I'll tell you everything you want to know." Lu Yi was surprised. What's the benefit of getting on the sedan? If not, the bull demon would not be so enthusiastic. The bull demon did not answer. He only shouted anxiously, "Hurry up and take me on the sedan before it's too late." Lu Yi wanted to ask why it was too late. At this moment, the ghost sedan, which had been unresponsive all this time, suddenly floated. Then, a strange power spread out from the ghost sedan. It was like divine sense, but it was not. Lu Yi had never felt this power before. The power was as vast as the sea. In an instant, it swept across the entire Wanxiang Sea and then radiated to the Wanxiang Galaxy. It suddenly retracted and condensed on Jiao Yan. Jiao Yan instinctively felt that something was wrong. The door of the ghost sedan suddenly opened. A red ribbon flew out from it and rolled toward Jiao Yan. It was so fast that even an expert like Jiao Yan did not have time to react. The red ribbon wrapped around her and suddenly retracted. Jiao Yan flew toward the ghost sedan with a stunned expression. She plunged into the sedan and disappeared. After taking Jiao Yan, the ghost sedan was about to fly away. "You want to leave?" Lu Yi was furious. He quickly chased after the ghost sedan. If it was anyone else, he would have let it go, but Jiu Yen, the bull demon shouted, "Take me with you." He looked as if he was afraid that Lu Yi would leave him behind. Lu Yi did not want to pay attention to him, but he thought that this guy obviously knew something about the ghost sedan. Perhaps he would be useful. He grabbed the bull demon and used the blood escape technique. His body turned into a bloody light. When he made his move, the other Rizhao also chased after him. Although they came from different galaxies and came from different forces, they had stayed on the Wanxiang Sea for so many years. Many of them were friends with Jiu Yen. Naturally, they would not stand by and watch. The ghost sedan's speed was not fast at first, but it was obviously increasing by a lot. Lu Yi, who was chasing after it, saw that the ghost sedan was getting farther and farther away from him. No matter how he used the blood escape technique, it was useless. He gritted his teeth and raised his Pan Shan saber. As his magic power surged, a huge saber light slashed toward the ghost sedan. The saber hit the ghost sedan, but the giant saber light did not damage it at all. Instead, with this attack, a large red ribbon floated out of the ghost palanquin once again, whipping towards Lu Yi across the air. It was completely different from Jiu Yan's previous encounter. This red ribbon only rolled toward Jiu Yan, but whipped toward Lu Yi. It was as if the ghost sedan had retaliated. Almost at the same time that Lu Yi saw the red ribbon, his vision was covered by a blood-red hue. He vaguely heard the sound of something breaking. His whole body suddenly became sticky, followed by a wave of dizziness. His protective magic power was instantly shattered, and a series of cracking sounds came from his body. He did not know how many bones in his body were broken. Only then did he realize that under the ghost sedan's attack, the bull demon in his hand was whipped into a bloody mist without making a sound. He was also heavily injured. His body tightened, as if something had wrapped around him. Then, his body flew uncontrollably in a certain direction. His consciousness also became dizzy. The Rizhao chased for a while, but the ghost sedan could no longer be seen. Because at that moment, the ghost sedan seemed to have escaped into the underworld and disappeared. This made them want to chase after it, but they did not know where to start. Oh no! Wu Qima's face was ashen. He did not care about Jiu Yan's life or death. They did not have much of a friendship, but nothing could happen to Lu Yi. Not to mention that Lu Yi was Su Yuqing's Taoist companion. He was also the master of Mount Fengxuan. If something happened to him, it would not be a small problem. Fellow Taoist Wu, don't worry. Fellow Taoist Lu should be fine. Just now, the sedan did not seem to want to kill him. Sui Lin stood beside Wu Qima and comforted him. Lu Yi himself was in a daze because of his heavy injuries, so he did not know what had happened at all. However, the others saw it clearly. His giant blade slash welcomed the counterattack of the bridal sedan chair. Under that attack, not even the bones of the ox monster remained. Logically speaking, Lu Yi should not have been spared either. But in reality, the moment the red ribbon touched Lu Yi, it changed direction and swept him into the bridal sedan chair. From what they had seen before, the strange sedan should have only wanted to capture Jiu Yan, but for some reason, it captured Lu Yi as well. As for why it captured Jiu Yan, no one knew. If it was because of the woman's identity, it would be wrong, because Jiu Yan was not the only female Rizhao present. Since that was the case, it could only be because of cultivation. Among the Rizhao present, Jiu Yan's cultivation was the highest. Of course, this was only a guess. No one knew what the reason was. Just now, the bull demon called the sedan a ghost sedan, and he wanted to get on it. A Rizhao suddenly spoke. He was the one who had joined forces with Lu Yi just now. Naturally, he had heard the bull demon's words. If that's the case, there might be some benefits in the ghost sedan. Whether there are benefits or not, we will know after asking. Sui Lin turned his head and looked at the other two unconscious enemies. What the bull demon knew, they should also know. Not only the ghost sedan, the Rizhao wanted to know more. On Jade Sword Island, the projection of Constellation Hall had disappeared. The red vortex had also disappeared. The chaos had ended with the disappearance of the Island Lord of All Things Island and the Island Lord of Three World Island. After interrogating the two uninvited guests, the various Rizhao finally understood some secrets that had never been known to others. They also finally understood why the general trend was descending. After this battle, with all things sea as the center, the various forces worked hard to accumulate their strength in order to deal with the general trend. For a time, the number of large-scale and high-level battles in the entire starry sky decreased. End of chapter. Chapter 2077. In the slightly dark and enclosed environment, the light of the candlelight illuminated the surroundings. When Lu Yi woke up, he felt pain all over his body. A familiar fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose. Behind his head was a warm and soft pillow. On his chest, there was a hand covering his heart. A gentle manna came from the palm, which was obviously helping him heal. Lu Yi did not move. He slowly recalled what had happened before. He chased after the ghost sedan and caused the ghost sedan to counterattack. He almost died on the spot. He did not die, but the bull demon that was with him died without a trace. Many things before that were unclear. He vaguely had some guesses, but he could not confirm them. Your injuries are not too serious. You should be fine after a few days of rest. In the quiet environment, Jiao Yan's voice sounded, as if a burden had been lifted. Seeing that Lu Yi did not respond, Jiao Yan frowned. Are you going to lie like this forever? Lu Yi suddenly showed a pained expression. My head is dizzy, and my spiritual soul is a little unstable. He used the matter of his spiritual soul as an excuse. Jiao Yan really could not judge whether it was true or false. She could only check the condition of Lu Ye's physical body. Whether there was anything wrong with his spirit ocean, she was completely unsure. Thinking back to when Lu Yi was thrown into the room with his body covered in blood, her heart skipped a beat. She almost thought that Lu Yi was dead. She checked his body in fear and found that the miserable state of Lu Ye's body wasn't his own, but someone else's. Then continue to rest. Jiao Yan sighed. She was at her wit's end. Since the last time, she had been avoiding Lu Yi and tried not to have anything to do with him. Several years had passed, but she did not expect that some things could not be avoided. God seemed to be against her, throwing her and Lu Yi into such a completely enclosed environment. A man and a woman alone together day and night made her feel uncomfortable all over. Lu Yi lay down and realized that he was lying on Jiao Yan's lap. Obviously, Jiao Yan had been taking care of him while he was unconscious. There was a moment of silence. Lu Yi was still thinking about what had happened before, but Jiao Yan's mind was filled with all kinds of thoughts. After all, it was impossible to pretend that nothing had happened. Moreover, the future of this trip was uncertain. No one knew if the two of them would be trapped here forever and never be able to escape. If that was the case, then they could only rely on each other for survival. Since they could not avoid it, they would have to talk about it. At any rate, they could not continue living in such an awkward atmosphere in the future. They were all cultivators. There was no need for them to care so much about certain matters. With that thought, Jiao Yan made her decision. I'll talk and you listen. Don't ask and don't speak, she suddenly said. Lu Ye's train of thought was interrupted as she looked into Jiao Yan's eyes. Because Jiao Yan was lying on Lu Ye's lap, their eyes met and they were almost within reach. Jiao Yan's eyes flickered, and she avoided his gaze. Tell me. Lu Yi finally realized what was going on. Jiao Yan took a deep breath. Although she had already made up her mind, she still found it hard to say. She gritted her teeth and said, You're a sunshine now, so you have some understanding of the external incarnation technique. Bansi. Her voice trembled slightly, but she forced herself to calm down. Is one of my incarnations. Back then, when Shino was in charge of Wushuang Island, I was worried, so I sent my incarnation to help him. Shin did not know about this. He has never seen my incarnation. Lu Yi thought to himself, just as I thought. He had already guessed this before. If Bansi was really Jiao Yan's real body, then many things could not be explained. After all, Jiao Yan was a peak sunshine cultivator. How could she be affected by the heaven-desired demonic spider? Therefore, Bansi's cultivation was real because she was just an incarnation. Seeing Lu Ye's reaction, Jiao Yan was surprised. You already knew? Lu Yi just stared at her and blinked. Jiao Yan was confused. What's wrong? Lu Yi raised his hand and pinched his mouth. His meaning was obvious. You told me not to talk just now. Jiao Yan was furious. She raised her hand and patted his chest. You can say it now. She had finally gathered her courage and was ready to talk to Lu Yi about this matter. However, Lu Yi played this trick. Lu Ye's chest was already broken in several places. After being patted by her, he immediately groaned. Jiao Yan panicked and blushed. Her action was too intimate. She did not know why she did it just now. She quickly patted Lu Ye's chest to comfort him. However, after rubbing twice, she felt that something was wrong. For a moment she froze. I'm fine. You don't have to worry about it. Lu Yi waved his hand and said, I did have a guess about this. I only confirmed it after you told me. Jiao Yan tried to calm herself down, but she did not know what to say. Seeing her like this, Lu Yi asked, Where is Bansi now? Jiao Yan looked at him faintly. She's dead. How did she die? Lu Yi was shocked. I killed her. Jiao Yan played it down. But do you feel sorry for her? Lu Yi was speechless. After a long time he said, Why did you kill her? Jiao Yan snorted coldly. My incarnation's cultivation method is special. It requires a body of primordial yin. After what you did to her, she can no longer cultivate. What's the point of keeping her? But Lu Yi opened his mouth and did not know what to say for a moment. No wonder he had not seen Bansi since then. It turned out that this was the reason. Bansi was killed by Jiao Yan. However, Bansi was Jiao Yan's incarnation. Should he take revenge? How could he take revenge? He couldn't take revenge on Jiao Yan. That was unreasonable. His mind was in a mess. The truth he had been searching for many years was suddenly placed in front of him. However, Lu Yi found that the result was not what he wanted. Suddenly he frowned. That's not right. Jiao Yan blinked. What's wrong? Lu Yi looked at her. Senior martial sister, have you forgotten that I also cultivate a secret technique like incarnation? If he did not have the precious blood incarnation, he would have been deceived by Jiao Yan. However, when he thought about it carefully, some things did not make sense. Jiao Yan pursed her red lips and did not speak. Lu Yi continued, If you really killed her, how could you know so much about her? So, you didn't kill her. You took her back. It was just like how he took back his precious blood incarnation. After he took back his precious blood incarnation, he could clearly see everything that the precious blood incarnation had experienced. What's the difference? Jiao Yan looked at him stubbornly. The truth is that there is no Bansi in this world. There is a difference. Lu Ye's expression was serious. If Bansi was really killed by Jiao Yan, then everything would completely disappear. However, since Bansi was taken back, it was different. Bansi had become a part of Jiao Yan. In other words, she was originally a part of Jiao Yan. Sooner or later, she would be taken back. It was just that what happened last time had happened earlier. Jiao Yan was annoyed. I'm telling you this today to tell you that Bansi's matter has nothing to do with me. Moreover, I have already been married. Senior martial sister has already been married? Lu Yi was shocked. He had never heard of this at all. Jiao Yan said, If I hadn't been married, where would Shen-er come from? Lu Yi blinked. Didn't you pick up Chu Shen? He also. I see that your face is ruddy. You should be fine now. Heal yourself. Saying this, Jiao Yan angrily pulled Lu Yi aside and shrank into the shadow. Her heart was full of helplessness. Why did Chu Shen tell others everything? Furthermore, Han Ci had originally appeared in front of Lu Yi and Chu Shen with a different appearance, so even if something had really happened, Lu Yi and the others shouldn't have been able to track her down. However, at the last moment, Han Ci had revealed her true appearance to Lu Yi. Bansi was her precious blood incarnation. What Bansi did was the manifestation of her inner thoughts. However, until today, Lu Yi still did not understand why Bansi did that. As a result, Lu Yi was in an awkward position today. Perhaps she was unwilling? The precious blood incarnation probably did not want Lu Yi to remember a face that had nothing to do with her. Originally, she wanted to have a good talk with Lu Yi to solve their problems. However, this talk did not solve the problem. Instead, it became more troublesome. On the other side, Lu Yi grimaced in pain. However, there was nothing he could do. He could only continue to lie on the ground and heal himself. 2 days later, Lu Yi felt much better. He stood up to investigate. For 2 whole days, Jiao Yan ignored him. When Lu Yi was recuperating earlier, he had roughly surveyed the surroundings. This place was like a secluded room. There were a few lit incense candles all around. The light in the room wasn't too dark, but it wasn't too bright either. Strangely, the candles did not show any signs of burning. It was as if they could continue to burn until the end of time. There was a window on both sides of the room. Red curtains hung from the window. Right in front of him, there was an exit. The door was tightly shut. Didn't he get sucked in by the ghost palanquin? Where is this place? With doubts, Lu Yi walked towards the tightly shut door. He raised his hand and pushed it. However, the door did not budge. He channeled his magic power but still could not push it open. Lu Yi frowned. He raised his hand and pulled out the Pan Shan saber. Jiao Yan's voice rang out. Don't do anything. If you touch anything here, something bad might happen. Actually, there was no need for her to remind him. Lu Yi felt it himself. Almost at the same time he pulled out the Pan Shan saber, an invisible malice enveloped him. It was as if he dared to use the saber, nothing good would come of it. Jiao Yan had clearly experienced this before. That was why she reminded Lu Yi. Since she had spoken, she did not hold back. She reminded Lu Yi, we seem to be in that ghost palanquin. That ghost palanquin is not that big, right? Lu Yi asked. When he observed it on the Wanxiang Sea, the ghost palanquin was not that big. It could only hold 1 person. Although this secluded room was not too big, it could not hold only 1 person. The ghost palanquin has its own secrets. Look outside the window and you will know. Chapter 2078. Lu Yi walked to the window and lifted the hanging red curtain. Looking out, he saw multicolored beams of light shuttling back and forth like fish. Beams of light were constantly thrown down, and new ones were born. The outside world looked grotesque. This is... Lu Yi showed a look of surprise. Jiao Yan said, this palanquin is moving at a terrifying speed. After saying that, she shook her head. No, it shouldn't be called moving. It should be said that it's shuttling through space. What you see before you is just a phenomenon caused by the shuttling through space. Where is it going? Lu Yi asked. I'm not sure. Jiao Yan also wanted to figure out where it was going, but she had no clue so far. Lu Yi walked to the other window and found that the situation was the same as here. He was shocked. Inside the palanquin, he couldn't feel the palanquin moving at all. The space inside the palanquin was extremely stable, as if it really was a secluded room. Thinking about the terrifying power that suddenly erupted from the palanquin, Lu Ye's heart trembled. This thing, could it be a supreme treasure? But looking at the universe, the number of supreme treasures was limited. Why had he never heard of such a supreme treasure before? Jiao Yan clearly knew nothing about the palanquin. But the current situation was that he and Jiao Yan were trapped here. The origin of this palanquin should be the same as that of the ox monster. They both came from a place called Star Abyss. Jiao Yan suddenly said, it wasn't strange to have such an inference because the ox monster recognized the palanquin and was very eager to get on it. Senior sister knows about Star Abyss? Lu Yi asked. I've never heard of it. Jiao Yan shook her head. Actually, I'm more curious about the door that suddenly appeared on Jade Sword Island. When something happened on Jade Sword Island, Lu Yi was the first to arrive with Luan Xiaoa and Yen Miao. Jiao Yan arrived later, so she didn't know what happened before. Lu Yi sighed. It's related to the insect race. They carried out an inexplicable sacrifice on Jade Sword Island, using the lives of 2 Rizhao and all the cultivators on Jade Sword Island as the price to open the door. They also used something that looks like a clay jar. I've never seen it before. What does it look like? Jiao Yan asked. Lu Yi described it in detail. Jiao Yan was also at a loss. She clearly didn't know what the clay jar was. So, the Zergs were the ones who opened the portal, and they even paid the price with the lives of 2 Rikashi. There are 3 of them. I injured the 3rd one and sent him back to the Mermaid Island. I was going to interrogate him later. Now that he was trapped in the ghost palanquin, he didn't have the chance to ask anything. The insectoids paid such a huge price, and they chose Jade Sword Island. Could this have something to do with the descent of the Great Influence? Jiao Yen was bewildered. I think so too. The insectoids obviously know something, but right now, we have no way to verify it. The door they opened on Jade Sword Island should be connected to the Star Abyss, and the strength of those fellows who came from the Star Abyss is very strange. Lu Yi wasn't sure about the other 2, but he knew that even Jiao Yen wasn't a match for the bull demon. With such terrifying strength, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was invincible. Jiao Yen said, that bull demon must have forged his Tao foundation. That's why he's so powerful. Forged his Tao foundation? Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. Shrouded in the shadows, Jiao Yan's bright eyes looked at him. You have a good relationship with Ma Bin. Haven't you asked him about his Tao foundation? Ma Bin had forged his Tao foundation. Previously, his Tao foundation was damaged, and he had been healing in the 3-world island for several years. Lu Yi shook his head. He really didn't ask Ma Bin about this, and he didn't know much about the Tao foundation. Jiao Yen sighed. On the path of cultivation, Rikashi is the peak. Since ancient times, it has always been like this. Many cultivators have reached their limits and couldn't advance any further. Although there is an ancient rumor that after Rikashi, cultivators have to forge their own Tao foundation to have the possibility to advance further, there is no standard or specific cultivation method to forge the Tao foundation. That's why there is the outer body incarnation method, the inner core method, and other kinds of methods. These are the helpless actions of Rikashi when they can't advance any further. Did Senior Ma Bin forge his own Tao foundation? Lu Yi asked. Jiao Yen nodded. That's why he's so powerful. What about you? If I knew how to forge my Tao foundation, I wouldn't have outer body incarnation, I wouldn't have. Jiao Yen looked at him in annoyance. She stopped mid-sentence and changed the topic. In the entire galaxy, including Ma Bin, there are no more than 3 people who have successfully forged their own Tao foundation. And they all had their own fortuitous encounters. No one can imitate them. Lu Yi finally understood why Ma Bin was stronger than the others when they were all at the peak of Rikashi. As for what kind of fortuitous encounter Ma Bin had to forge his own Tao foundation, Lu Yi didn't know. Ma Bin was from the previous Jiuzhou era. He had a long lifespan, so it wasn't strange for him to have his own fortuitous encounters. Then Lu Yi realized something else. What about Changfeng? Does he include the 3 people who have forged their Tao foundation? Of course not. Senior brother Changfeng is strong, but he's still within the limits of Rikashi. That's not right. Lu Yi was puzzled. If that's the case, doesn't that mean Senior Ma Bin is weaker than the bull demon? Back then, Ma Bin was besieged by Changfeng and the others. As a result, his Tao foundation was damaged. On the other hand, they were 4 against 1 this time. At first, they couldn't do anything to the bull demon. Even the power of the sword gourd didn't work. The sword gourd was a treasure, but the bull demon was able to withstand it without any injuries. How terrifying was that? The strength that he displayed seemed to be much stronger than Ma Bin's. Jiao Yen said, even those who have forged their Tao foundation have differences in strength. That bull demon came from the Star Abyss. There must be something mysterious in the Star Abyss. In the entire galaxy, including Ma Bin, there were no more than 3 people who had forged their Tao foundation. But this time, the 3 uninvited guests from the Star Abyss were all people who had forged their Tao foundation. It was obviously not a coincidence. This undoubtedly signified one thing, and that was that this place, Star Abyss, very likely had a method to establish one's Tao foundation. This was also the reason why Jiao Yen didn't panic even though she was trapped here. She even had some expectations because the ghost palanquin came from the Star Abyss. It was very likely that it would bring her to the Star Abyss. In that case, there was hope for her future, which had been trapped for so many years. If that was the case, Then this was an opportunity for her. But she didn't expect that Lu Yi would also be involved. Lu Yi could feel Jiao Yan's thoughts and faintly discerned her expectations. But now that she was trapped in the ghost palanquin, whether she could escape or when she could escape was still unknown. Thinking about it carefully, the sudden appearance of the red vortex alarmed the Constellation Palace in the depths of the Wanxiang Sea. Its projection suppressed the door. Under the cover of the treasure's power, the three powerful enemies' strength rapidly weakened. This gave Rikashi the chance to deal with them. Their weakening was obviously related to the suppression of the door. The bull demon was very flustered at that time and wanted to leave through the door. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed. Since he couldn't leave, logically speaking, there shouldn't be anything coming from the other side of the door. But in fact, the ghost palanquin came. Just a moment before the ghost palanquin came, the Constellation Palace's projection faded to the point where it was almost invisible. It inexplicably gave people the feeling that the Constellation Palace deliberately let it come. Why did the Constellation Palace let the ghost palanquin come? Was it because they couldn't resist it? Or was the ghost palanquin's arrival not harmful to the starry sky? Lu Yi didn't know. After that, the ghost palanquin took Jiao Yan away. This was obviously because of its strength. Because before the ghost palanquin made such a move, its power radiated across the entire Wanxiang galaxy. At that time, Jiao Yan was the strongest in the Wanxiang galaxy. As for himself, it was purely an accident. He could sense that the ghost palanquin's counterattack was something he couldn't resist at all. But for some reason, the moment the red ribbon touched him, the ghost palanquin didn't kill him. Instead, it pulled him in. The current situation was very clear. As long as there wasn't too much of a commotion in the ghost palanquin, it should be safe. And there was a high probability that the ghost palanquin would bring them back to the star abyss. This could be inferred from the bull demon's previous reaction. The star abyss? What kind of place was that? Why were the cultivators from the star abyss able to forge their Tao foundation so easily? Perhaps these doubts could only be answered when they truly arrived at the star abyss. Since they were already there, they might as well take things as they came. For the next period of time, Lu Yi cultivated while recuperating. Jiao Yan silently sat in a corner, neither of them disturbing the other. They only occasionally chatted to pass the time. On this day, Lu Yi, who was meditating and polishing his soul-subduing secret art, suddenly opened his eyes. This was because a strange sound came from the ghost palanquin that had been deathly silent all this time. It was as if something was sliding, and there was a rustling sound. But when he looked in the direction of the sound, he couldn't see anything. "Come here!" Jiao Yan shouted at Lu Yi. Of course, she also noticed such an obvious movement. Lu Yi's heart warmed. Ever since they were trapped in the ghost palanquin, Jiao Yan had done her best to appear indifferent and rarely made any useless exchanges with him. But when something really happened, she still showed concern. The ghost palanquin had been quiet all this time, but it suddenly reacted today. It was obviously abnormal. Lu Yi hurried to Jiao Yan's side. Just as he steadied himself, the tightly closed door of the palanquin suddenly opened. Then, a red ribbon quickly retracted. At the end of the ribbon was a figure. That person had a baffled expression. Clearly, he still hadn't figured out what had happened. He was thrown to the ground by the red ribbon and rolled a few times before coming to a stop. He immediately stood up and circulated his magic power, vigilantly sizing up his surroundings. With a boom, the opened door of the palanquin closed again. In the corner of the enclosed space, Lu Yi, who was standing beside Jiao Yan, met the eyes of the person who had suddenly appeared. The other party's face was immediately filled with hostility. He raised his hand and summoned a powerful magic treasure. "Fellow Taoists, there are no grievances or enmity between us. Why did you launch a sneak attack?" Chapter 2079. The cultivator who suddenly appeared in the ghost palanquin didn't look very old, only in his 30s or 40s. However, his aura was extremely pure, unlike ordinary sunshine. He clearly misunderstood and thought that Lu Yi and Jiao Yan had ambushed him. Lu Yi raised his hand and said, "Fellow Taoist, you misunderstand. It wasn't us who ambushed you." That person frowned. There are only two of you here. If it wasn't you, who else could it be? Lu Yi said, to be honest, we're also trapped here, he slowly explained. The other party was skeptical, but neither Lu Yi nor Jiao Yan showed any hostility. Moreover, he felt that he absolutely couldn't fight here. Once he did, it was very likely that something bad would happen. Lu Yi was well aware of this. Like fellow Daoists said, this is the space inside the ghost palanquin? After a simple exchange, Lu Yi learned that this person was called Qinli. He was also unlucky. Originally, he was cultivating in his own cave. Who would have thought that a red ribbon would appear out of thin air, and then he came here dizzily? One had to know that when he was cultivating in seclusion, there were layers of formations inside and outside his cave abode. He was confident that no one in this world could ambush him without alerting him. In the end, he still fell for it. Moreover, he didn't even see what the ghost palanquin looked like. Compared to Lu Yi and Jiao Yan's encounter, he could only be described as unlucky. At the very least, Lu Yi and Jiao Yan knew the general situation. This is the inside of the ghost palanquin. We're all trapped here. Lu Yi nodded. Qinli frowned and said, how long have you two been trapped here? About half a month. Don't you two have a way to escape? If we did, why would we still be here? Qinli was clearly unwilling. For the next half a day, he had been looking for a way to leave. Unfortunately, this space was sealed and there was no way out. While he was busy, Lu Yi and Jiao Yan were also secretly communicating. Originally, the two of them thought that the ghost palanquin would bring them back to the star abyss. However, Qinli suddenly appeared. He was obviously also dragged in by the ghost palanquin. This undoubtedly meant that neither Jiao Yan nor Lu Yi were special existences. Apart from them, Qinli also met the criteria of the ghost palanquin. Therefore, Qinli, who was cultivating in seclusion, appeared here. Based on Lu Ye's observations, Qinli's strength was probably on par with Jiao Yan's. As for the galaxy he came from, Lu Yi had never heard of it. Clearly, it was not connected to the Wanxiang Sea. This was not strange. The starry sky was vast, and even in the heart of the Wanxiang Sea, only a small portion of the galaxies were connected to it. With one more person in the ghost palanquin, Lu Yi and Jiao Yan's interactions were no longer as awkward. A few days later, the same commotion as before was heard again. Lu Yi immediately opened his eyes and exchanged glances with Jiao Yan. Both of their expressions changed. When he saw Qinli, he had guessed that the ghost palanquin might capture more people. Now, it seemed that it was indeed the case. I wonder which unlucky bastard is going to suffer this time. Beside him, Qinli swiftly got up and rushed towards the door of the palanquin. He had already asked Lu Yi and found out that the door of the palanquin was always in a sealed state. It would only open for a moment when a newcomer was captured and then close again. So, if he wanted to leave, he had to seize that moment of opportunity. Lu Yi turned to look at him. He actually had the same idea, but he felt that things were not that simple. Moreover, he had vaguely mentioned this to Jiao Yan before, but Jiao Yan was unwilling to leave the ghost palanquin. If his previous speculation was correct, the ghost palanquin would take her to the star abyss. She did not want to miss this opportunity. Any cultivator who had reached her level of cultivation and was ambitious would not miss this opportunity. Even if the future was unknown, they had to explore it first to understand. At the same time, in the galaxy outside, two figures were chasing and fleeing at an extremely fast speed. The person fleeing in front shouted as he ran, "Ma Bin, don't go too far." If Lu Yi was here, he would definitely be able to recognize that the fleeing fellow was Chang Feng. When he failed to ambush Lu Yi that day, he knew that he could no longer stay in the Wanxiang galaxy and immediately fled. Lu Yi had chased him for several days with Xiao Gua and was furious. After Chang Feng left the Wanxiang Sea, he wandered the starry sky, but a few days ago, Ma Bin suddenly came to him and chased after him. How could he be a match for Ma Bin alone? He could only escape. Along the way, many of his magic weapons were used up, and he was in an extremely bad state. He felt that he could not hold on any longer. This trip was probably his death date. Ma Bin's powerful voice came from behind him, injuring my Dao Foundation and ambushing my junior. Today, I will settle the score with you. Ma Bin did not care too much about injuring his Dao foundation. In the fight between cultivators, death and injury were inevitable. Countless enemies had died in his hands in the past 10,000 years, and he had long been aware that he would be killed. What really made him want to kill was Changfeng's sneak attack on Lu Yi. Therefore, after leaving 9 regions that day, he killed all the way here. At the beginning, he told Lu Yi that he knew where Changfeng Association was hiding. This time, he did not find the wrong place. While speaking, he punched out from afar. Changfeng sensed something was wrong and tried to resist, but his body still shook, and he spat out blood. In terms of cultivation, the two were almost the same, but one had cast the Dao foundation, and the other had not. Their strength was simply worlds apart. If it weren't for the protection and escape of many magic weapons, Changfeng would have died long ago. My time is up. Changfeng sighed in his heart, knowing that he could not escape this time anyway. His mind calmed down, and his face showed a determined look. At this moment, he suddenly turned his head to look in a certain direction. In that direction, a bridal sedan chair had appeared out of nowhere. Almost at the same time he saw the bridal sedan chair, a red ribbon stretched out from the door of the sedan chair and rolled towards him. Changfeng was shocked and he quickly wanted to dodge. But how could he dodge? The red ribbon easily wrapped him up, and he was directly taken into the sedan chair. Seeing this, Ma Bin, who was chasing after him, was furious. His whole body suddenly burst out a strong light, and he instantly turned into a ball of light and hit the sedan chair. However, this time, he hit nothing. When he stood still again, the strangely appearing bridal sedan had disappeared without a trace, and so had Changfeng. Ma Bin frowned and spread out his powerful divine sense to search around, but he found nothing. In the ghost palanquin, the moment the door opened, Chen Li's body flashed and rushed out. This time, he actually managed to escape. In the darkness, a loud laughter came. A little ghost palanquin actually wants to trap this Chen. What wishful thinking. Lu Ye's expression changed when he saw this. Was this really possible? However, just as this thought appeared in his mind, he saw Chen Li's figure, which had already charged out, appear at the door of the sedan. At some unknown time, there was a red ribbon wrapped around his body. Under the swing of the ribbon, his entire body shot back like an arrow from a bow. With a bang, he was stuck to the wall facing the sedan chair door and slowly slid down. The corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. Sure enough, it was not so easy to escape from here. Another red ribbon came in, and Lu Yi quickly looked away, wanting to see which unlucky bastard it was this time. Just like the first time Chen Li appeared, this unlucky bastard rolled on the ground a few times before he hurriedly got up and looked around vigilantly. Senior brother Changfeng? Jiao Yan looked at the battered figure in shock. She didn't expect the unlucky bastard to be dragged in this time to be Changfeng. Lu Ye's expression slowly turned cold as he watched the drama unfold. He didn't forget Changfeng's sneak attack on him that day. If it weren't for the fact that Changfeng had many tricks up his sleeve, he would have died that day. He didn't expect the ghost sedan chair to drag Changfeng in today. This really was a case of enemies meeting on a narrow road. Jiao Yan? Changfeng also revealed a stunned expression, but when he saw the familiar figure standing next to Jiao Yan, his heart trembled. Lu Yi. His killing intent suddenly surged. He thought about how he had been chased by Ma Bin to the point of no return, but in the blink of an eye, he had turned the situation around and even saw Lu Yi here. Haha. He couldn't help but laugh, but as he laughed, his injuries worsened, and he coughed violently. After calming down a little, he raised his finger and a bright light appeared on his fingertip. He coldly looked at Lu Yi and said, "You will repay Ma Bin's favor." Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. "Your injuries were caused by Senior Ma Bin?" Changfeng's injuries were too obvious. It was obvious that he had just gone through a tough battle. Lu Yi was originally curious as to why this guy was so heavily injured, but after hearing Changfeng's words, he understood the whole story. Ma Bin was very efficient. It was just bad luck that Changfeng was captured by the ghost sedan chair and escaped disaster. That's not right. Lu Yi suddenly remembered something. If the ghost sedan chair's standard was to capture the strongest person in a certain area, then the one who came in this time shouldn't be Chang Feng, but Ma Bin. He had chatted with Chun-Li about this before and learned that he was indeed the strongest person in the galaxy he was in. Lu Yi only had this conjecture because Jiao Yan was chosen in the 10,000 Elephant Sea. However, Chang Feng's appearance overturned this idea. Why was it Chang Feng and not Ma Bin? Chang Feng clearly didn't want to answer his question. It was already embarrassing enough that he was injured like this, so how could he rub salt on his wounds? He only stared at Lu Yi with a murderous look, but he didn't actually attack. This was because he suddenly felt an inexplicable malice shrouding him. This malice was at a level he couldn't resist at all. Lu Yi looked at him provocatively. Jiao Yan frowned, not knowing what to do. She couldn't let Chang Feng attack Lu Yi, but the grudge between Chang Feng and Lu Yi wasn't something she could resolve. Is there a grudge? Just as the atmosphere gradually became tense, Qin Li's voice came. He sat at the foot of the wall and wiped the blood from his nose. That hit just now wasn't light. He asked Lu Yi this question. Although they didn't have much of a friendship, he had been with Lu Yi for a few days and was barely familiar with him. Great grudge. Lu Yi sneered and looked at Chang Feng. Why aren't you attacking? If he dared to attack, he wouldn't have a good ending. Lu Yi was also confident that he could withstand a blow from Chang Feng in this state. Every day, he either had guests at home or went out to pay a New Year's visit. His legs were broken. Today was like welcoming the god of fortune. I wish everyone a prosperous year. Chapter 2080. Inside the ghost palanquin, Chang Feng's expression changed several times, but he didn't dare to make a move. He used his powerful divine sense to investigate the malice in the air, but he couldn't find anything. He had no idea where he was or why Jiao Yan and Lu Yi were here. All he knew was that he had been swept here by a strange palanquin and was lucky enough to escape Ma Bin's pursuit. Since you won't make a move, don't blame me for being impolite. Lu Ye's eyes drooped slightly as he spoke in a cold voice. He never expected that the ghost palanquin would capture Chang Feng. There was a deep hatred between the two, and Chang Feng's killing intent towards him was obvious. He didn't want to stay in the ghost palanquin with such a person. Only by getting rid of him would he be able to rest easy. Now that Chang Feng was seriously injured, it was undoubtedly the best opportunity. With a flick of his finger, 3 drops of treasure blood flew towards Chang Feng in a triangular formation. As they flew, the treasure blood quickly twisted and turned into 3 clones. You dare! Chang Feng was shocked. Lu Ye's decisiveness surprised him greatly, because if he wasn't mistaken, he couldn't casually make a move here. The terrifying malice was absolutely not fake. Once he made a move, he wouldn't have a good ending. He didn't believe that Lu Yi hadn't noticed this. But Lu Yi still made a move. Had he overlooked something? Lu Yi had arrived here earlier than him, so perhaps he had found a way to avoid it? He didn't have time to think about it because he had already experienced the power of Lu Ye's treasure blood clones. When he chased Lu Yi all the way here, Lu Yi had used this method to escape. Sensing with rapt attention, Chang Feng found that the 3 clones rushing towards him had a violent aura and could explode at any time. If he was at his peak, such a situation couldn't be considered to be too dangerous, and he would naturally be safe and sound if he utilized his defensive magic treasure. But all his magic treasures had been completely exhausted from Ma Bin's pursuit, and he himself was heavily injured and in a bad state, so how could he have any extra defensive methods? You want me to die? I'll kill you first. Chang Feng's expression turned ruthless. He knew that if he wanted to live, the only way was to kill Lu Ye's main body. Stop! Jiao Yan's delicate voice rang out as she rushed towards Lu Yi. The clash between Lu Yi and Chang Feng had erupted too quickly. She didn't have time to react at all. Her actions were completely instinctive. She wanted to protect Lu Yi from Chang Feng's attack. But how could he make it in time? At such a close distance, Gale's attack arrived in the blink of an eye. Lu Yi let out a muffled groan, blood bursting from his body as he flew backwards and crashed into the wall. However, Chang Feng did not feel any joy at having succeeded. Instead, his eyes trembled violently. He looked at the three doppelgangers who had rushed to his side. Their auras were so violent that they seemed like they would explode at any time. However, they strangely stopped. There was only one thought in his mind. He had been tricked. All of Lu Ye's ruthlessness and decisiveness was an illusion. He had no intention of self-destructing that strange doppelganger. He had only created this illusion to force himself to make a move. Faced with the situation just now, he had no choice at all. If it were anyone who had just arrived here, they would have no choice because that was completely the instinctive reaction of a cultivator when faced with a fatal threat. The moment Lu Yi was injured, the terrifying malice became incomparably thick. Chang Feng even had a feeling that an invisible gaze was watching him from behind. Very good. Chang Feng looked at the distressed Lu Yi who was sitting at the foot of the wall with Chun Li, and his face was filled with unwillingness. Then, like a burning candle, Lu Yi began to melt from head to toe. In just 2 or 3 breaths of time, a living person had disappeared, along with everything on his body. It was as if all traces of Changfeng's existence had been erased. In this secluded space, there was only silence. Lu Yi looked in the direction that Chang Feng had disappeared. The corners of his eyes couldn't help but twitch, filled with dread. Although he had already felt that he couldn't casually make a move here, otherwise something bad would happen, he didn't think that things would be so serious. He had targeted Chang Feng and forced him to act. On one hand, it was because the two of them already had a grudge against each other. On the other hand, he wanted to borrow Changfeng's hand to see what the consequences would be if he made a move here. So, even though he had suffered a blow from Changfeng, he hadn't allowed the doppelgangers to self-destruct. Now, he had seen, even if Changfeng was seriously injured, he wouldn't have been so easy to kill, but he had been killed so quietly without leaving a trace. Although Changfeng's death made him very happy, what he had seen throughout the process made his heart heavy. This ghost palanquin, was it really a starry sky supreme treasure? This. Chen Li, who was on the side, was obviously frightened and speechless for a long time. Only Jiao Yan sighed. Speaking of which, she didn't have much of a friendship with Chang Feng, and there was even some friction between them. After all, Chang Feng was the instigator behind her being forced to leave the Wanxiang Galaxy. But in any case, she was still a member of the Wanxiang Galaxy, and this label could not be erased. It was because of this that she had come forward to plead for leniency and saved the lives of Yuan Sei and the others from Lu Ye's hands. Today, she didn't want any conflict between Lu Yi and Chang Feng. But now that things had come to this, how are you? Jiao Yan looked at Lu Yi. After taking Changfeng's blow, Lu Yi deliberately didn't resist it too much, so it was obvious that he was seriously injured. While speaking, Jiao Yan wanted to go over to check the situation. Don't come over! Lu Yi shouted, looking up at her, and slowly shaking his head with a dignified expression. Jiao Yan immediately noticed and panicked. It's fine. Lu Yi comforted her, it should be fine. Just now, after Chang Feng died, the terrifying malice suddenly transferred to him, causing his mind to tremble. Although it was Chang Feng who injured him just now, he was the one who took the initiative to condense the precious blood clone. Since Chang Feng died, he naturally couldn't come out unscathed. However, under the shroud of malice, Lu Yi didn't feel any fatal threat, which made him feel a little relieved. As he waited in fear, the malice slowly dissipated. Lu Yi let out a long breath and looked into Jiao Yan's concerned and worried eyes. It's fine. Jiao Yan nodded and sat back down. Lu Yi recalled his precious blood clone and took out a healing spirit pill to swallow, then immersed himself in investigating his source spiritual acupoint. Just now, under the shroud of malice and the boundless threat, he clearly felt that the talent tree's kindling was a little abnormal. However, the situation was critical at that time, and his life could be in danger at any time, so he didn't have the time to investigate. Now that he looked at it, the talent tree's kindling had indeed changed a lot. The kindling had become much brighter, and he could vaguely see a small sapling growing inside the kindling. Was it a blessing in disguise? The talent tree's transformation this time was extremely difficult. It had been 3 months since it turned into a kindling, but it still hadn't finished transforming. Before, there hadn't been much change, but this time, the progress was obvious. Lu Yi didn't know why there was such a change, but it was obviously related to the malice of the ghost palanquin. He even intended to trigger the malice a few more times. This way, the transformation of the talent tree should be faster, but considering Changfeng's fate, he gave up. The ghost palanquin definitely had its own will, and that malice was the manifestation of its will. In that case, the people who were captured by the ghost palanquin were all its conscious choices. In the Wanxiang Sea, it chose Jiu Yan, then it chose Qin Li, and then it chose Changfeng. Only his entry was an exception. Also, according to what Changfeng said, he was being chased by Ma Bin before, but why did the ghost palanquin choose Changfeng and not Ma Bin? Ma Bin's strength was obviously higher than Changfeng's. However, this guy was really unlucky. He had coincidentally escaped Ma Bin's pursuit, but in the end, he died in the ghost palanquin. This grudge was thus resolved. While he was healing his wounds, Lu Yi discovered something that made him feel awkward. He had been imprisoned in place by an inexplicable force. He could cultivate, heal, and make small movements, but he couldn't get up or leave his current position. This was clearly the ghost palanquin's punishment for his previous actions. Lu Yi was speechless. He secretly transmitted this matter to Jiu Yan, and Jiu Yan immediately looked at him sympathetically. In the following days, every once in a while, an unlucky person would be captured by the ghost palanquin. The interior of the ghost palanquin slowly became lively. Almost all of those who had been captured were famous figures in the starry sky. They were all top powerhouses in their respective galaxies. Jiu Yan was very knowledgeable and recognized a few of them. Even if she didn't know the rest, she had heard of them. Because Lu Yi was confined to the spot and couldn't move, and the number of people gradually increased, Jiu Yan simply sat beside Lu Yi. Thanks to her, Lu Yi more or less understood the origins of these powerhouses. Because he and Jiu Yan were the ones who knew the whole story the best, almost every newcomer would ask them about the situation. The two of them didn't hide anything and told them everything they knew. They even told the newcomers everything that had happened on the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Among the many powerhouses, Lu Yi only cared about one. It was a tall young man with long purple hair and an extremely demonic temperament. He looked to be in his early 20s. However, such a young man was a powerhouse that no one present could ignore. The first great demon venerable of the Zixien demon planet, Ziji. The enmity between Lu Yi and Zixien was even greater than Changfeng's. In the Jade Conch Galaxy, Zixien's army was destroyed, and more than 10 demon venerable level powerhouses died in battle. After that battle, it was said that Zixien had been gathering intelligence and information about Kyushu. Obviously, they didn't intend to let the matter rest. But because of Kyushu's previous performance, they didn't dare to act rashly for the time being. Ziji obviously knew Lu Ye's identity, but he didn't show any strange behavior. Since he was captured, he had been sitting quietly in one place, quietly resting. The more he was like this, the more vigilant Lu Yi was. End of chapter. Chapter 2081. Inside the ghost palanquin, many figures were sitting quietly. Some were alone, some were in groups of 2 or 3. They were communicating with each other using their divine sense. Including Lu Yi, there were 9 people with different auras. Among them, there were 2 women and 6 men. There was one whose gender could not be determined. This person was called Phantom. He was a shadow that was constantly changing. Not only was it impossible to tell whether he was a man or a woman, but it was also difficult to tell whether he was a man or a woman from his voice. But after Jiu Yan's introduction, Lu Yi knew that this phantom was the current leader of the ghost race. Among these 9 people, only Lu Yi was at the early stage of the Sunshine Realm. He was very unique among this group of strong cultivators. Because there were only 2 women, besides Jiu Yan, the other female cultivator called Su Wan was very close to Jiu Yan. This Su Wan was the 5th person to be captured. She gave off a very clean feeling. Her beauty was also quite outstanding, and her body was curvaceous. But unlike her clean temperament, her body seemed to be shrouded in a layer of fog. Even though there were so many experts present, not a single one of them knew of her background. She was a top expert who shouldn't be unknown, but it was as if she had suddenly popped out from some corner of the world. Jiao Yan also secretly warned Lu Yi to be careful of this Su Wan. She obviously felt that this woman was not simple. On this day, Lu Yi had nothing to do, so he was chatting with one of the strong cultivators. The reason they could talk was mainly because this strong cultivator was from the 5-color domain. He was a strong cultivator from the Stone clan, called Zhongyue. On the Vientiane Sea, the 3-world island had a good relationship with the 5-color island. It was no secret that Lu Yi and Swan and I were friends. Over the years, the 5-color merchant guild had made a fortune on the Vientiane Sea, and the 3-world island played a part in it. Naturally, the strong cultivators of the 5-color domain had long heard of Lu Yi, the master of the Wanxiang Sea. There was also a sunshine from the 5-color domain who came to visit Lu Yi to express his gratitude. With such a natural relationship, Lu Yi and Zhongyue could naturally talk about it. As they were talking, Zhongyue suddenly turned his head and looked at the door of the ghost palanquin. He raised his eyebrows. Oh? Is there another newcomer? He was the 7th person to be captured in the ghost palanquin. He naturally knew what it meant when the ghost palanquin opened. He had seen this scene twice. Initially, he wanted to use this opportunity to leave the ghost palanquin, but after knowing what happened to Qin Li, he gave up. Since the ghost palanquin had captured them, it was clear that it would not let them go easily. The others also noticed the abnormality of the sedan door and turned their heads to look. They saw a red silk ribbon appear out of thin air and retract. A figure fell into the sedan and rolled on the ground awkwardly. He hurriedly stood up and looked around vigilantly. Then he froze. This was an awkward situation that all the newcomers had to face. The interior of the palanquin was not large to begin with. With so many experts gathered in such a short period of time, the newcomers would be frightened out of their wits, thinking that they had fallen into a tiger's den, no matter how strong their cultivation was. Aya, another sister has finally arrived. It was the mysterious Su Wan. She was sitting not far from Jiao Yan. When she got up, she enthusiastically waved at the new cultivator. Sister, come over here. Don't be afraid, you can't fight here. The newcomer was a female cultivator. Her temperament was extremely delicate, like a flower that had been ravaged by a storm. Anyone who saw her would inevitably feel pity for her. Feeling Su Wan's enthusiasm, she looked around and found that although there were many experts here, they were all sizing her up. No one had any ill intentions. She immediately understood that Su Wan did not lie to her. Just as she was about to walk towards Su Wan, a voice came from the corner. Is it Taoist Water Immortal from the Infinite Realm? The person who spoke was called Xing Yuanzi. Judging from his posture, he obviously knew this newcomer called Water Immortal. Water Immortal looked toward the voice and was delighted. Taoist Xing Yuanzi? She hurriedly walked over. Anyone would be at a loss if they suddenly appeared in such a place. Since she met someone she knew, she naturally had to go over and inquire about the situation. Soon, Water Immortal came to Xing Yuanzi's side. Their divine senses surged as they communicated. What a pity! Su Wan smiled and shook her head. There were not many female cultivators here. It was rare for one to come, so she wanted to get closer to her. However, Lu Ye's expression changed. Water Immortal from the Infinite Realm. If he wasn't mistaken, wasn't this Su Yuqing's close friend? Back then, when he set off for the Azura field from Mount Fangsuan, Su Yuqing had given him a jade token, saying that it was something that belonged to Water Immortal from the Infinite Realm. Because Water Immortal was in the Azura field, Su Yuqing had told him that if he encountered any trouble in the Azura field, he could ask Water Immortal for help. However, on that trip to the Azura field, Lu Yi did not see Water Immortal and did not know how to contact her, so he had given up. Was this Water Immortal that Water Immortal? Lu Yi was puzzled. Logically speaking, there should only be one Water Immortal from the Infinite Realm. There shouldn't be so many names, especially with her cultivation. Thinking about it, he rummaged through his storage ring and quickly found the jade token that Su Yuqing had given him back then. Water Immortal, who was talking to Xing Yuanzi, suddenly turned to look at him. Xing Yuanzi also said, "The two over there, One is the Lord of the Myriad Elephant Sea, Lu Ye, and the other is the Tao Master of the Myriad Elephant Island, Jiao Yan. You may have heard of them, but they are the ones who know the most about the ghost palanquin because the cause of the incident was in the Myriad Elephant Sea. The two of them were also the first to arrive here. If fellow Taoist wants to know more, you might as well ask them. Thank you for your guidance, fellow Taoist. Water Immortal stood up and bowed. Then I'll go ask them. Go ahead. Xing Yuanzi nodded. Narcissus then walked straight towards Lu Yi. When she got close, Water Immortal bowed first and said in a soft voice, Greetings, fellow Taoist Lu. Lu Yi nodded. At this moment, he was certain that Water Immortal in front of him was Su Yuqing's friend because her aura was exactly the same as the aura left in the jade token. Water Immortal looked at the jade token in his hand and understood. Did Big Sister Yuqing give this to you? She had only given this jade token to Su Yuqing. Now that it had appeared in Lu Ye's hands, the situation was naturally very clear. Back then, I went to the Azura field. Before I left, Senior Sister Su gave this to me and told me that if I needed help, I could ask you to take care of me. Water Immortal asked, May I ask, what is your relationship with Big Sister Yuqing? If they weren't close, Su Yuqing wouldn't have given her jade token to others. However, the last time she met Su Yuqing was many years ago, and she hadn't heard Su Yuqing mention Lu Yi. Lu Yi blinked. Tao companion. This wasn't a secret in the Vientiane Sea. Jiao Yan was originally looking at Water Immortal curiously, but when she heard this, she immediately stared at Lu Yi. Su Wan noticed this and looked at Jiao Yan, then at Lu Yi. As if she had discovered something interesting, her eyes brightened. Water Immortal couldn't help but cover her red lips. Big Sister actually found a Tao companion? She couldn't help but look at Lu Yi from head to toe, wanting to see what was so special about him that he could actually make Su Yuqing fall in love with him. However, no matter how she looked, she couldn't tell much. She couldn't help but recall Xing Yuanzi's introduction just now. The Master of the Vientiane Sea, this wasn't a light title. Water Immortal had been cultivating in seclusion in the infinite realm for so many years, so she really didn't know anything about the changes in the Vientiane Sea. No one had ever mentioned this to her before. After all, it wasn't convenient for the infinite realm to communicate with the Vientiane Sea, and there weren't many direct interests involved. It's the truth. Lu Yi nodded. Senior Apprentice Sister Water Immortal, please forgive me. I was punished by the ghost palanquin and couldn't get up. I apologize for my rudeness. Water Immortal was suddenly enlightened. No wonder Lu Yi had been sitting here so casually. So there was a reason for this. Ghost palanquin. Is it that strange bridal palanquin? Water Immortal asked. Before she was captured, she had clearly seen the ghost palanquin. Yes. Lu Yi nodded. Water Immortal frowned for a moment. She simply sat down in front of Lu Yi. This matter is far too bizarre. There are many things I don't understand. Can Junior Apprentice Brother dispel some of my doubts? Her temperament was far too delicate. As she frowned, boundless pity appeared. Let alone Lu Yi, even a female cultivator like Su Wan felt her heart tremble. Of course. After a moment, Water Immortal finally understood everything. So, you're saying that the ghost palanquin will eventually bring us to a place called Star Abyss. And that place will allow us to forge our own Tao foundation? Water Immortal asked. Before Lu Yi could finish, Su Wan continued, That's right. Otherwise, why do you think everyone is waiting here quietly? Sister Water Immortal, it's good that you're here. This way, we'll have 3 female cultivators. We should get closer to each other in the future. Water Immortal smiled kindly at her, then looked at Lu Yi. This deduction makes sense, but it doesn't seem to have any concrete evidence. When others asked, Lu Yi naturally wouldn't say too much. But since Water Immortal was Su Yuqing's good friend, there was no harm in saying more. If it was said that it didn't have any evidence at first, then it does now. What do you mean? Those captured by the ghost palanquin are all at the peak of the Sunshine Realm. They're also the strongest cultivators in their respective regions. Seeing Water Immortal looking at her in confusion, Lu Yi explained, My region is an exception. It's not included. Jiao Yen sighed. Although she didn't see it with her own eyes, she was sure that Lu Yi must have done something after she was captured by the ghost palanquin. That's why she was dragged in as well. Speaking of which, she had implicated Lu Yi. Actually, after Taoist Chen Li, there was another person called Chang Feng who was captured. At that time, he was being chased by an even stronger cultivator. But the ghost palanquin only captured him and ignored the other stronger cultivator. Why is that? Water Immortal was confused. According to Junior Brother, shouldn't the ghost palanquin choose the stronger cultivator to capture? That's right. Lu Yi nodded. But what if the stronger cultivator has already forged his own Dao foundation? I'm afraid that's the only explanation for why the ghost palanquin didn't choose him. Chapter 2082. The ghost palanquin had its own will. This could be seen from how the ghost palanquin punished Lu Yi after he plotted to kill Chang Feng. Since the ghost palanquin had its own will, why did it capture so many sunshine? What was its purpose? It was not easy to fight inside the ghost palanquin. This was probably a form of protection for those who were captured. Without this protection, Lu Yi would definitely have to fight to the death with Venerable Purple Extreme. However, it was because of this protection that everyone could sit here peacefully. Lu Yi was also puzzled about one thing. Why did the ghost palanquin choose Chang Feng instead of Ma Bin? After thinking about it, it might be because Ma Bin had established his own Dao foundation. The Star Abyss was a place where one could easily establish their Dao foundation. Ma Bin already had his own Dao foundation, so he was naturally not selected. Lu Yi and Narcissus did not hide their conversation, so everyone heard it clearly. Xing Yuanzi said, "Fellow Taoist, even so, there is no way to be sure that the ghost palanquin will take us to the Star Abyss." Lu Yi nodded. "Yes, so this is only a basis, and also my own conjecture." Everyone fell into deep contemplation. After cultivating for so many years, they'd all already walked to the limits of their bodies, and there was no possibility of further advancement. A portion of them had once fumbled with the method to establish their Dao foundation, but none of them succeeded. If the Star Abyss was really a place that could allow one to easily establish their Dao foundation, then everyone would absolutely flock like a flock of ducks. Compared to the Star Abyss, I am more curious about another matter. ZG sat opposite Lu Yi and looked at him. "Where did fellow Chang Feng go? Why were you punished by the ghost palanquin?" Only Jiao Yen and Qin Li knew about Chang Feng. The others did not know. Besides this time, Lu Yi did not mention it. ZG was not the only one with this question. Everyone else had the same question. Since they could not fight inside the ghost palanquin and could not escape, then Chang Feng, who was captured, could not have disappeared for no reason. Take a guess. Lu Yi turned to look at him. ZG narrowed his eyes slightly, and everyone else's expression turned cold. They immediately realized that Chang Feng was most likely dead. Lu Ye's punishment must have something to do with Chang Feng. There were many things in this ghost palanquin that they didn't know. Just as Lu Yi and ZG were talking, the ghost palanquin that had been stable all this time suddenly shook violently. It felt as if they were sitting on a speeding and bumpy carriage. Everyone's expression changed. This was something that they had never encountered before. "Fellow Taoist Lu, what's going on?" the water deity asked in alarm. This sudden change caught her off guard, and she almost fell down. She hurriedly steadied herself. Lu Yi shook his head. "I don't know." In the time it took to say these two sentences, the shaking became even more intense. Along with the shaking, a strange force faintly came out of the ghost palanquin. Under the effect of this force, all the people in the palanquin had their magic powers sealed inside their bodies, making them unable to stand steadily. The situation quickly worsened. The space inside the ghost palanquin was spinning upside down. It was as if the ghost palanquin had been sucked into a storm and was drifting about in the storm. At this moment, many of the top Sunshine players were like ordinary people without the strength to truss up a chicken. Following the violent turbulence, they were constantly thrown to various places. With a bang, Chun Li's entire body hit the wall of the palanquin. Before he could slide down, he was thrown to the other side. Zhongyue collided with Xing Yuanzi. Zhongyue did not react at all, but Xing Yuanzi's face was bruised and swollen. He had a helpless expression. ZG, the famous great demon venerable, was also flailing his arms and legs, desperately trying to stabilize his body. However, it was to no avail. It looked extremely comical. There was also a sunshine player called Dustless. He was crying out as he was thrown here and there. After a few times, he was dizzy. Only Phantom, who was like a ball of flowing water, stuck to the walls of the sedan, safe and sound. Just as she was watching this rare scene with great interest, she suddenly saw Zhong Yu's burly figure uncontrollably coming towards her. She panicked and screamed, "Don't come over here." Lu Yi sat in place, not moving at all. He did not expect that the punishment given to him by the ghost palanquin would be a blessing in disguise. He could feel that after the ghost palanquin began to shake, his spiritual power had become extremely scattered, and he could not use it at all. The moment he realized that something was wrong, he grabbed Jiao Yan's arm. At this moment, Jiao Yan's entire body was stuck to his left side. Only then did she avoid the same embarrassment as the others. There was another person who was also sticking to him. It was the mysterious Su Wan. This woman was smart and had always been by Lu Ye's side. Almost at the same time Lu Yi grabbed Jiao Yan, she grabbed Lu Yi and was determined not to let go. At this moment, she and Jiao Yan were hugging Lu Yi from both sides. Lu Yi was a little dizzy for a moment. He only felt that his two arms were full of amazing elasticity and softness. Suddenly, he heard Phantom scream. He hurriedly turned his head and saw Zhongyue crash into Phantom, directly flattening her. In that direction, Daffodil rushed over with a pale face. Her two hands subconsciously grabbed around, like a drowning person trying to grab a life-saving straw. She just happened to fly over Lu Ye's head. Lu Yi only felt a pain in his head. His body involuntarily straightened and his neck tilted in the direction Daffodil was flying. Daffodil, who was about to fly away, grabbed his hair and fell down. Coincidentally, she fell directly into Lu Ye's arms. His nose was filled with a fragrance. In his arms, there was a ball of softness like water. Lu Yi was stunned. Daffodil was not any better. When she came to her senses, her face turned red. She hurriedly said, "Sorry for the offense, fellow Taoist." One of her hands wrapped around Lu Ye's neck while the other grabbed his clothes, trying to fix herself to Lu Yi. She was in a hurry. Compared to being thrown here and there without a care for her image, and perhaps constantly colliding with other people, she was more willing to stay like this. Inside the ghost palanquin space, it was chaos. Only Lu Ye's side was as calm as a mountain. Not only was he hugging women on his left and right, there was also another in his arms. Especially the way Daffodil was hugging him, it was unimaginably ambiguous. Lu Ye's expression turned solemn. He looked down and his heart was as still as water. A ball of flesh on the left side of his waist was pinched by a small hand and fiercely twisted. Lu Yi did not seem to feel it. "Fellow Taoist Lu, save me." Accompanied by the shout, Chen Li bared his fangs and brandished his claws at him. He clearly realized that if he wanted to settle down in this kind of turbulence, he could only rely on Lu Ye's strength. It just so happened that he was thrown toward Lu Yi this time. This was a good opportunity. Just as he got close to Lu Yi, two jade fists blasted out and hit his eyes. A jade foot also kicked up and stepped on his face. "I do." Chen Li screamed and flew away. Beside Lu Yi, whether it was Jiao Yan, Su Wan, or Daffodil, they all lowered their heads and their faces were crimson red. The turbulence continued and became more and more intense. After a full hour, this strange situation suddenly disappeared. The ghost palanquin returned to its previous tranquility. Figures fell from different positions. They all got up in a sorry state and hurriedly tidied up their appearance. They were all famous people, so it was inappropriate for them to suddenly become so miserable. On Lu Ye's side, Daffodil stood up like a frightened rabbit and hurriedly tidied up her messy clothes and hair. With a red face, she whispered, "I'm sorry." If it was really an unrelated person, it would be fine, but Lu Yi was Su Yuqing's Taoist companion. She and Su Yuqing were very close. If Su Yuqing knew about today's matter, She didn't know how to explain it. It's just an emergency. Senior Sister Daffodil, you don't have to worry about it. Lu Ye's expression was serious. His serious appearance relieved Daffodil a lot of the awkwardness. At this moment, Su Wan also let go of Lu Yi. She wasn't as shy as Daffodil, but said generously, "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Lu Yi nodded slightly. Jiao Yan naturally wouldn't thank Lu Yi. She just silently let go of him. Lu Yi touched his waist without a trace. It was burning with pain. There must be a bruise there. At this moment, Zhong Yue was squatting beside Phantom, who looked like a pool of flowing water. He poked him with his hand. There was no response, so he poked him again. Phantom's weak voice came from the pool of flowing water. "What are you doing? I'm not dead yet." Zhong Yue chuckled. "All right, as long as you're not dead." He stood up and turned to look at Lu Yi. "Fellow Taoist Lu, has something like this never happened before?" Everyone else also looked at him. Lu Yi shook his head. "It has never happened before. Ever since we entered this place has been extremely stable. It's the first time something like this has happened. There must be a reason for this abnormality." Xing Yuanzi rubbed his chin and pondered. Ziji couldn't help but glance at him. He didn't say anything. Although no one knew what had happened, they had to admit that this wasn't a bad thing. Instead, it was a good thing. This was because change was what everyone wanted to see. If there was no change, then it would be despair. Just as the Zhu Rizhao were deep in thought, a creaking sound suddenly rang out. 10 pairs of eyes looked in the direction of the sound. They saw the closed door of the sedan suddenly open. Is there another newcomer? Someone was bewildered. In the past, every time the sedan door opened, a newcomer would be swept in. There had never been an exception. But this time, when the door opened, there was no sign of a newcomer. That's not right. Lu Ye's expression suddenly changed. He slowly stood up. Jiao Yan's eyes were filled with surprise. "Junior brother, you." Ever since he was punished by the ghost sedan, Lu Yi had been unable to move. It was as if his entire person was imprisoned in place. Apart from cultivating, he couldn't do anything else. He couldn't even stand up. But now, he actually stood up. This clearly meant that the ghost sedan's punishment on him had disappeared. Lu Yi walked forward. Soon, he arrived in front of the sedan door without any obstructions. He looked at the open door and the scene outside. He turned to the others. "Everyone, I think we can go out now." Many of the people in the sedan already had their guesses. This time, after the sedan door opened, there was no sign of a newcomer. The door didn't close either. This was an obvious sign. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.